What else we got? One of Kurt's favorites, Anadrol. Go first.
I'll give it an A, right?
I agree.
It's not the safest drug, but it's a good drug. I mean, it's proven itself since the 50s. I mean, if you want to add size, it's probably one of the best drugs out there for size. It also reduces body fat, right? It seems to not be as rough on lipids as people think, magnifies the shit out of trend, right? I mean, Dan Duchaine said 40 years ago at this point, almost 50 years ago, right? He said, nothing will put size on you like test, trend, and Anadrol. And you know what? He was right about that one.
He was right. Welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 6. Yes, we've been doing this for 6 months, which means it's anniversary time. And for the anniversary, Dr. Dean St. Mart decided to go bald, like myself and Kurt Havens. So now we're the 3 bald musketeers. Gentlemen, the last episode we did 65,000 views. 65,000 views. We gained 250 subscribers, and we gained, over $600 of ad revenue, which you guys are entitled to for a nice Anabolic Roundtable dinner. We just got to meet somewhere. So me and Kurt are going to the Arnold Classic. Dean, are you coming?
I think I have to. I think I'll have to come to Ohio.
I know a place in Ohio where we can spend all of this AdSense money.
Is it Cracker Barrel?
Yeah. So you got recognized in Cracker Barrel, right?
I did, yeah. By 2 different people.
Yeah, that's
on the way to Dave Tate.
Yeah. How'd you find the Olympia, your first Olympia, Kurt?
It was cool. It was cool.
Yeah?
I still, like I said to you before, I think the Arnold I enjoy the Arnold more. I think the crowd is a little better. It's bigger. The expo part is better. I think the music at the Olympia during the show was a little loud.
Yeah.
Too. Maybe I'm just getting old, but it seemed like a little intense.
Both.
The lighting at the Olympia I didn't find it really fantastic. I thought it was kind of hard to tell what was going on. Yeah,
especially prejudging was kind of off. And me and Aaron asked Dan, like, hey, what are you going to do about those, the backdrop, about the lights? And then he got all defensive for 30 minutes that it's a production and it's not about bodybuilding. It's about having a lot of display on the screen. And then it bit them in the ass later at night because they had to put the contrast super high and then all the physique looks washed out. Now, that being said, the top 3 was not peaked. Right? Samson was a little bit off, but the best Samson so far.
Yep.
Hadi was peaked, but he was downsized, especially in the lower body from the back. Derek Lunsford's, stage fright. He was very depleted. Looked like he needed another day to load up. And then Martin Fitzwater was perfectly peaked, just like John Jewett for both days. Those guys really stood out. But Martin Fitzwater got into the top 5, but John Jewett got a hard pass, which is a shame. Because if anybody looked fucking diced, it was John Jewett. I did speak with him at the meet and greet, and I think he wants to come on.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. Super nice guy.
Gonna debate him for 2 hours. No. No, we'll get him on the podcast at one point. So yeah, the Mr. Olympia was fun, but the finals was better. Yeah, prejudging was good, but finals was a lot better. Dean, did you watch it back home? Like the live stream?
I did. I got the live stream and watched both days. Obviously, I was over in Poole, over at the Supplement Needs hub, sorting that out. So I was watching it from the comfort of my hotel room. But yeah, it was a very interesting show. Definitely think Samson did deserve. I mean, when we come out of prejudging, very, very close, but I mean, he was ahead clearly going into finals. And then the Saturday Classic Physique, that was very entertaining in terms of like the final call out of the, between Chris and Urs and swapping them around. Even I was a little shocked. And I think anyone that was watching it, having, Chris on the outside for the final call out and then moved into the centre, obviously that was clearly a judging tactic to generate some hype probably. But it did get me a bit where I was sort of like, oh, could this be, number 6 not on the cards? But I think we all knew it was coming.
Yeah, they like to move these guys around now because you said it at the finals for Open as well, and even for 212, they just move these guys around, make them work for it, make the production last longer, and get these guys a little bit more stage time. And then everybody can shout on top of their lungs, and then it'll probably go by a decibel meter. Whoever shouts, whenever the audience shouts the hardest, that's when the winner's in the center. So that's what it felt like at some of these competitions. It was a lot of fun, though. I had a good time. We had gold VIP tickets, so shout out to Dan. Much appreciated. So I sat right behind the judges' table. I sat next to Tony Doherty's girlfriend, and she was calling all the shots. She had the top 5 placing 100% correct. It was insane. Yeah, she's a IFBB judge herself, so she mostly does the Australian shows. I mean, I think she also judged the New York Pro. So she was like, yeah, this guy in 5th, this guy in 4th, 3, 4. She had it perfectly. So I had front row entertainment. It was a lot of fun. So Dean might come to the Arnold Classic then. Yeah,
I think we've been approached. Obviously, you've got the Stacked Expo ran by Shane as well, the Supplement Expo.
Oh, right. Yeah,
he's approached us to maybe exhibit there. So all going well. I'll hopefully be at the Arnold. It's definitely the one out of the 2 that I've not yet been to.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I haven't been yet either. Because the Arnold or the Mr. Olympia is closer for me, right? I go to Vegas and then it's easy. And last year I was in the United States for a month, so I just did the rounds, and then I ended up in Florida for the Mr. Olympia. And then was like, it might as well go to Disneyland and Universal Studios while you're there, right? Might as well. So this time, like Ohio is a little bit far. So I'll do a stopover in Las Vegas for 3 days, then go to Ohio, and then fly to LA on the way back, just for collaborations and stuff. Yeah. But doing the Mr. Olympia for the Olympia weekend in Las Vegas, man, it's nonstop. You have no breaks. Yep. So I was destroyed after that week, or after those 10 days.
Did you get sick? A lot of guys who were with got sick.
So I got sick before I went. So I was already sick when I arrived, and that's why I could barely function. I was literally living off energy drinks, like every American. And at one point, I think for the Olympia weekend, I bought some Sudafed, some phenylephrine, just to keep me going, because I was destroyed, man. 6 hours of sleep every night, and then going to the gym. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a deload. And then you go to Torture Gym or Dragon Slayer or Fit Club or whatever, and you're warming up. You're like, nope, we're not going to do a deload. We're just going to train fucking hard. So I was completely broke. So after a week of recovering here in Thailand, I feel good again. I'm never flying economy though. So next time I go, I'm doing business. Yeah, I already got my business tickets. I sit like this next to some.
I don't know how you fit. I don't fit in the economy seats.
So when I booked the tickets, I was off cycle. So I didn't think about it. And then by the time, because you book these tickets 6 months in advance, right, to get a good deal. So now I already got my business class tickets for a decent deal to Las Vegas and then onwards with whatever airline is available at the time. But now I know that I'm still going to be the same size, if not bigger, by the time we go to the Arnold Classic. Because I'm going to do a crazy cycle, which we're going to talk shortly about. But I'll probably be like 270 or 265 by the time I go to the Arnold Classic. And then I definitely need business. I was 253 at Mr. Olympia after a couple of days of eating. So I think it was about 240, 245 when I arrived. It's so funny, when you meet people in real life, you're like, holy shit, it's so big. When I met Kurt, it's like, oh God, everybody's so much bigger in real life. It's hilarious. It's hilarious to see.
I guess you only see this much of us on the internet.
Yeah, it's like, especially when you're on the screen, right?
Yeah. I'm sure I said the same in Dubai when I first met you in person. Holy shit, the size you, Steve.
Yeah, it's good. So now we're going to aim to be a little bit bigger. So let's break down our cycles, and then we'll go into the steroid tier list for the oral steroids, because that's what everybody wants to see. Dean, you just got out of contest prep. You shaved your hair. It's a new start, a new beginning.
New start, of course.
What are you running?
So what was it? It's now 4 weeks since the British final, and obviously we never discussed that I won the British final, so British Classic Bodybuilding champion.
Fuck yeah!
So that was a nice end, and then I came second in the overall, which was a little bit of a sting because obviously the winner got the IFBB Elite Pro card. But to be honest, had I even won, I wouldn't have even taken a pro card because it wasn't even on my agenda to become a pro or compete as a pro. This year is just about proving to myself, so I can happily go back into hibernation for a while until the itch comes back. So
winter is coming after all, so we can all embrace the fluff a little bit.
That's exactly it. So since then, obviously, the the magic Diane train came out, and we've dropped out obviously the Tren, the orals. The last 4 weeks I just ran that sort of baseline of what was there before of the TRT 125 test and the 300 Primo, and now from next week just go straight back to TRT 125 and run that probably till January, February, check bloods and see what sort of my fancy takes for next year, whether it's, you know, getting in shape for holiday again or another little whatever you want to call it, push bulk phase. But
nice phase for the Arnold Classic, bro. I mean, I've gone from, for the show 4 weeks ago, I weighed in at 86, and now this morning I was 93 4 weeks later. So that's, you know, 7 kilos, 14, 15 pound up. Quite a chunk of it is, you know, fluid and glycogen, etc. Because what I like to do post-show is just bring carbs up to pretty much double what they were contest prep-wise and just keep them there. So appetite is under control. Yeah.
Still doing cardio, still doing step count, but, you know, you've obviously pulled out your fat burners and everything else. So definitely a good bit of size has come back from the, you know, the Primos, the 300 milligrams with the TRT, and obviously training's been better. But yeah, there's no immediate goal of like Morgan said to me, is that you done competing again? I'm like, well, for now, until something, you know,
stay tuned.
It takes my fancy to come back again. But I've got, you know, there's nothing on my mind that, the show's finished now. It's off-season improvement phase for a show next year. That's definitely not on the cards for me.
All right. Are you keeping the SLU PP332 in, or are you taking it out? Still in.
I think I'm going to continue that on even into the TRT phase, and then that'll be it. Hopefully a full year of pretty much taking it, you know, between 200 to 400 micrograms, and then that's going to be probably the longest N=1 experiment so far.
Well, and I'll have because of you and this podcast, everybody's running this shit. Yeah. Everybody's loving this shit, and they're loving it, you know. So Chase Aarons switched to it. Mm-hmm. Basically, the entire top 5 of Classic Physique. A couple guys in Open. Right? So going through the grapevine, told me at the VIP Gala Expo, or a gala dinner. So, you know, can't name any names unless they want to come forward. But literally everybody is on SLU PP332.
It's one of those ones that I think has gone a little viral, that hopefully, you know, touch wood, that nothing adverse is happening. But so far, I mean, blood work all throughout this year has shown nothing changing detrimentally. Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't extrapolate 10, 15 years into the future, but you could say the same about anything that you're utilizing. But as it stands, you know, metabolically, like even now in terms of like the food I'm eating, I'm pretty much, like I said to Kurt, I'd say 3-4 weeks of lowering carbs back to contest prep, you know, change sort of the stack design back to pre-contest. Probably in 3-4 weeks I could be back on stage again if I really wanted to. That
oh wow.
You know, I haven't gotten fat with the increase in food over the last 4 weeks. I've gotten fuller, I've got more sort of water retention, but very minimal fat gain.
Okay, that's good. I got pretty fat in the US, but that's
well, you'll have to trial out now at your upcoming cycle to put the SLU in and see what flexibility
I'm keeping
gives.
it in. Yeah, I'm keeping it in. So I'm staying on 750 micrograms SLU. So that's 3 servings of 250 micrograms. I'm using the modern aminos one, code Vigorous, or Amino Asylum, code Vigorous. Dean?
Yeah, we've got Biolabs in Europe, so Dr. Dean with them. But yeah,
there you go. Kurt?
What am I currently running?
No, what is your discount code for SLU PP3?
I don't have one. Shit.
Okay, we got to work on that.
We got to work on that.
You got to monetize your fucking advice, man. We'll work on that. So no, I'll continue with the SLU, and then microdosing Mod C, because it does seem to work, and then methylene blue I'll keep in. But please continue with what you're running, Dean. Yeah,
so I think basically from there on in, I've kept in the methylene blue, the SLU, GH stays in, you know, the 4 I use before bed and train days has stayed the same. I've just kept things really simple. Really using, like I've always said to people, use food post-show take your food up and enjoy that increase. Well, not that I had a deficit in energy, but enjoy that now that you've got more glycogen. You can push heavier weights. You can gain back some of the size that's been lost. Not like I said, anything on plan to even like go to a higher dose of Primo next year or anything like that. It's for now, I'm happy to go back into the shadows and tick the box off that I proved I could bring a better package than 2022.
There you go. Yeah, and then maybe in a couple of years when the bug bites again, you can always go back and show what you've been building during the off season.
Exactly.
Enjoy yourself, Kurt. You've been cruising.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I stopped my cycle right before the Olympia. I'm just on 600 tests and half a bottle of Ceristim a day.
That's a cruise?
For me, that's a cruise.
Well, you're a big motherfucker, dude. So, did you see those pictures that you took with Aaron?
I did.
I'll overlay them. Dude, you're something else, man. You have like no skin.
Yeah, I don't really gain a whole lot of fat. I'm sure the half a bottle of Ceristim helps too.
Of course it helps. But I saw those pictures like, oh man, I didn't realize that was hiding on that shirt of yours. So
yeah, I stay pretty lean.
Yeah,
daily cardio.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, it's so good stuff. So you're on 600 tests and a bottle of Ceristim?
Half a bottle for now.
Half a bottle, yeah. And you're maintaining all your size and strength.
I kept the same size, the same condition. Like Dean said, maybe a little bit of water from the dropout of trend. It's hard to say. And I'll stay like that. Who knows? Christmas. If you're going to come at 270 to the Arnold, then maybe I need to be 230. I don't know.
It won't be a nice 270 though. I don't even have a six pack now, so
I don't know if I could do a nice 230. We will see.
Yeah, everybody gets a little bit. It's cold in Ohio, man. You got to prepare.
Oh, it's definitely cold there.
Yeah,
it's cold here.
I haven't had snow in years, maybe even a decade. So I want some padding, and I don't want to spend all this money on snow boots. And so I'd rather be fatter than dish out an entire wardrobe for 3 days in Ohio when I don't need it any other time.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. So you're just going to cruise until the Christmas and then take it
Give
from
or
there?
take and see what, yeah. I mean, I had great luck with the last cycle. Maybe I'll just do that again.
It surely worked.
It worked.
It surely worked.
People
were freaking out and how thick you were. Like, what the fuck? I love it. I love it when people meet and then everybody's like 10 times the size. It's good stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. So I'm gonna do the weirdest protocol ever. I'm gonna grow my gyno for my upcoming gyno surgery in January, because I've heard so many horror stories where people have to do the gyno surgery again, and even though I found a good gyno surgeon here, like every time it flares up, I feel that it's more than it was when it's completely suppressed with Mastrone or Primo. So I'm like, you know what? Just grow it. 325 tests or 310 tests. 330 Nandrolone, 100 mint, and then Anadrol on training days. So that's 200 milligrams of Anadrol per week. And then if that, like Anadrol is a DHT derivative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that blunts the maximum amount of gyno that can form, even though structurally, technically, Anadrol should be able to interact with the estrogen receptor, even though there's no scientific evidence to support that, right?
Most likely it's messing with the excretion, the elimination of estrogen, and not so much the estrogen receptor directly. I got gyno from Anadrol once.
Yeah.
When I was kind of a little more body fat, and it comes really fast when you get it from Anadrol. Like woke up the next morning with a massive marble.
So I have puffy nipples already, and I'm sure it can make it worse. And I might throw in some Dianabol at the end.
Cool.
So I'm running this protocol until December. Then in Christmas. Then in Christmas I'm coming off, so all the inflammation and the estrogen can subside. And then I have about 2 weeks before the gyno surgery. So it's about 1,100 milligrams of steroids in total. That's my cycle. And then I'll do 10 IUs on Monday and Thursday. That's chest, shoulders, and tricep day, mostly focusing on chest. And then on Tuesday and Friday, I'll do quads, focusing a little bit on hamstrings and calves. So I'm just going to bring up weaker body parts, eating a good amount of food, and then take 18 IUs of growth hormone on quad day. So I'll take 56 IUs of growth hormone, but only 4 days a week.
Okay.
Hopefully that will minimize the water retention, because when I did 10 IUs growth hormone per day, I know I got too much edema around my ankles.
It didn't go away? Usually, like I got that at first and then it kind of went away after a couple of weeks.
No, I kept running it. I was on 10 IUs for months.
Because when you saw me, I was on 18 units, Sarastan. I wasn't holding any water.
Yeah, so for me, I just hold water apparently. But then again, my body fat levels weren't as low as yours, so maybe that contributes.
It's possible.
Yeah, but now that I'm doing 4 times per week, the water retention is significantly less. Even though I'm on Nandrolone and Trestolone and no aromatase inhibitor, so my estradiol is already 130 picograms per milliliter. And I'm sure it's going to get much higher going forward.
How much Nandrolone are you using?
330.
Cool. It's a good dose.
Yeah, so it's like around 300 test, around 300 Nandrolone, 100 ment,
I like
200 Anadrol. Yeah. So
how are you in? It's ment acetate, Trestolone acetate?
Yeah.
And you're injecting every day?
Yeah.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah. Sub-Q though. I know you hate it, but...
No. When I was doing the ment, I was using Ensanito because you're doing the tiniest bit. Right?
Yeah. So what I do is I throw 1 ampule of Bayer Testoviron, 1.1 cc of Deca, and because it's 300 milligrams per 1 milliliter, and then 2 cc's of mint because it's 50 milligrams per 1 milliliter. Throw it all in the sterile vial, shake that up, and then draw from there, like 0.6 milliliters per time. So it's all going sub-Q. And now I've been on it for 10 days, and the Gyno is growing and getting nice and swole, and yeah, it feels a bit sensitive. Oof,
it's your appetite. Ment really gave me a huge appetite. I felt like I was going hypo often on it.
Yeah, but I was also running tirzepatide and retatrutide for a while, so I came off of that, and my appetite is already brutal. It's always been brutal. I can easily eat 6,000 calories, so I'm holding back on the 3,300 calories that I'm eating now. So for me, it's very easy to gain size because I can always eat, but I always get fat because of it. Because it's once I start eating, I'm just throwing the towel. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna eat. Still got a boatload of vegetables in there to kind of blunt my appetite that way. But so hopefully I don't gain too much extra body fat and then just show up large and in charge.
I can't imagine what you're gonna look like 20 pounds heavier.
Big.
Yeah.
My face is going to be round too.
Yeah, it's good. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's winter.
Everybody's already reminding me that my face is round as fuck, so it's okay. I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show these guys. And then Increlex and, all these little things like the mitochondrial support stack at SLU is going to continue. MOTSI is going to continue. Methylene blue is going to continue. And then these small ancillaries to kind of keep blood pressure and heart rate under control.
I did a strain echocardiogram, which we typically just use in cancer to detect early heart growth from chemo. Yeah. And mine was a 21.8. So it showed no sign of enlargement at all. It was actually better than a normal person 20 years younger than me.
Good. Because Jose was telling me to do it,
he's the one who prompted me to get that done.
Yeah.
And he got so scared after you learned about that, and then he stopped bodybuilding. Like, Jose, what are you doing? Well, you made such good progress.
I think the doctor that he was interacting with said that everyone, even on TRT, is going to get it, some level of growth, which is definitely not true. Testosterone's cardioprotective in men up to a certain dose. So there's just no way. We've not been seeing heart growth since 1952 or whenever they were readily supplying testosterone. This is not occurring. Yeah. It occurs in some people, but I think the doctor's seeing pro bodybuilders. Right, like the one guy won his pro card and got on the Olympia the same year. So the amount of gear that took to do that, that wasn't TRT.
No, exactly.
Your heart's going to grow if you do that stuff.
I did an echocardiogram about 6 weeks ago, and I had like 1 millimeter into left ventricular hypertrophy, but normal injection fraction.
You say that's lifter's heart anyway.
Yeah, so it's a normal athlete's heart, right? But I wanted to start an Nabivolol alongside the telmisartan because I know that in the off season, the strength and the reps that I can do, like 12 reps, 15 reps for even heavier weight than I was doing during the cut, it's probably going to strain my heart quite a bit. So I preventatively added in the Nabivolol because I know that I can get left ventricular hypertrophy worse than before because I tested this years ago when I was on my max weight. And then I had some clear signs of heart enlargement. Again, normal ejection fraction. But since I've done like 5 echocardiograms so far, I know what the maximum can be. So preventatively, I added in 5 milligrams Nabivolol, which, in combination with methylene blue and fluvoxamine and SSRI, man, it keeps you calm and happy.
Yeah. And your calcium score is good and your lipids are good.
Yeah, right? Lipids are good. HDL was a bit low. HDL was like 28.
That's not that low. Single digits is when I would really worry.
No. So it's not bad after Winstrol and Tren and Mastrone and so it's not bad. And now I might be able to bring it up because I'm going to increase my fat intake. I do a ketogenic diet. Also not very bodybuilding approved, but it's worked for me.
Teach their own. Who cares?
Yeah, to each their own, right? I would rather do carbs though, but it just makes me feel so hot inside. So that's basically the protocol. We're going to grow my chest, my quads, and my gyno. And then one of those I will have surgically removed. And then hopefully by the time I hit the Arnold Classic, I'll look large with a big fat chest on the top, but not at the bottom. I'll probably. Do you guys know Austin Powers with the fembots?
Yeah,
that's what it's going to be. But I won't be shooting guns. I'll be shooting milk. Yes. So bad. Yeah, so this is going to be the weirdest experiment ever. But hopefully I'll get out on top, and then I'll only have to do it once because I've seen so many botch jobs with gyno surgery that,
Yeah, that's why I chose Dr. Clark in Poland in a clinic called Medimel years ago. At the time, she was one of the best in the world and probably still is. She still practices, but she had so many people from the US come for a second surgery. She was telling me when I think I was 22 at the time because I'd gyno from puberty.
Oh, right.
And that was, that was one thing, not to go into it, but for years kept going to my GP about like puffy nipples. I've got puffy nipples. Like this was like 15, 16 years of age. Oh yeah, it's fine. Everything's okay. Don't worry about a hormone imbalance. And then you like get to your 20s and you realize, oh, actually there's a big lump in there.
Don't worry about it. Just a hormone imbalance. Who needs hormones anyway?
And then obviously you're looking back and going I guess it's not licensed as well, so you can't turn around to a 15-year-old go, well, here's a script for tamoxifen off label. But, she done a great job. She done the half moon lunar incision. And then what she was very skilled with, which a lot of them don't do, is liposculpture.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
So she took fat from a part, like on the outside of the chest, and then moved it in behind where the crevice of the nipple gland was.
Otherwise it collapses.
So that it doesn't collapse. Biggest risk, anyone listening to this, that you're told when you're going for like the half moon lunar incision is that you might lose your nipple. But the positive side to it is she said you can always have your nipple tattooed on. So, if you're really conscious about it, but she said this is a really rare occurrence, but you can have a little...
Here's a discount code for the nearest tattoo artist.
And you're sitting in the office going like, okay, so that's the biggest risk. He's like, yeah, if something goes wrong, the small little nipple might fall off. I'm like, okay, well, it's no big deal.
Jeez.
But yeah,
did you lose nipple sensitivity? Okay, big fucking deal, right? I got more erogenous zones than that. But if you lose your entire nipple, it falls off and turns into some black little protrusion. Then I don't know, man.
Yeah. Gross. So I mean, thankfully, not went with mine, but the recovery. Make sure you get yourself a Macom compression vest because half the time they don't tell you these things that how to recover from it. But like
got them ready already. Yeah, but I bought them when I was off cycle, so they might be a little bit too small.
Small. Well, the tighter the better.
Yeah, they might be extra tight. Yeah, I got my whole protocol ready. So BPC 157, TB 500, GHK copper. And I'll use palmitate GHK as well because that permeates through the skin. And then copious amounts of Anavar and growth hormone. It should be more than enough to kind of heal it. Yeah, so I'll go to a breast reconstructive surgeon that does it for breast cancer, most likely, so they can do liposuction, sculpt it, and just make it look nice. Because even if I get shredded glutes and my lower back is diced in, I still got fat in my lower chest. Right? And even with roloxifene during that time, it just never goes away. So I can either diet myself to the point I have no legs and no shoulders and no back, or just lipo it away. Well, I'm not stepping on stage, so and I'm old, so I can do a little bit of cosmetic. Yeah. Old enough. Yeah.
I'm like now 12 years on since the surgery, and I was even from a cosmetic perspective, when you're in your teenage years, big puffy nipples. You know, that's debilitating. Anyone listening to this who's young and you're being told, oh, it's just a hormone imbalance. Well, it is, but it's going to develop into a solid lump if you don't address it.
Yeah, and then besides the social insecurities that you get from it, right? You don't want to take your shirt off at the beach, especially when you're lean. Yeah, right? Because the eyes straight go to the puffy nipples. But the weird thing is, I developed gyno when I was 24 after my motorcycle accident, and then I started lifting again. That was a very emotional period for me because, you know, you can't even squat, and you start squatting, and then you finally do your first leg press. And I remember after leg press, I was always like, I had some tears. My estrogen probably was sky high at that time. Living in Holland. Yeah, I know. I don't know what happened. It must have been the medications that I was running after surgery. Right? So, and then at one point I've touched my nipples. There was just fucking gyno there, completely fully grown. Because when you're drug free, you don't check your nipples every fucking day for gyno, right?
No.
So I was stretching. I was like, what the hell is this? My shirt is getting stuck. So I felt it. I'm like, fuck, what is this? Do I have gyno? And I go to the doctor, and he's like, he does an ultrasound. He's like, yeah, you got gyno on the right side. I said, are you taking steroids? I said, no, man, I wish I would have been much bigger than I am now. Now I'm finally getting back to the fucking gym, you know? So I developed it naturally after I got back into the gym, weirdly. I still don't have an explanation for it. And then, of course, the first time I ran Anadrol, then it fucking exploded. There was a second flare-up, and then I had a couple of flare-ups on Trenbolone. But, now I'm just going to let it run wild and see what happens. Okay. And then instead of doing multiple surgeries, I'll just do one big one. One surgery to rule them all.
And that's the thing, because, in the UK, they do obviously have cosmetic surgeons that perform, obviously, the removal. But most of the time they tell people, oh, we're going to leave a couple of microscopic cells behind in case of the nipple collapsing when we take the gland out, which doesn't really make too much sense, because then you're leaving that person with the susceptibility of it growing again. Even though they're like, oh, it's very minimal. You know, guys are going to push the boat here now that the glands are gone. They're going to be like, okay, well, I don't need to check my estrogen and, do X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden it starts regrowing again.
Yeah, and then even if you don't, like, how often can you do blood work? I mean, if you go on Mint, let's say, like, this is the first time I'm running Mint, so maybe I really like this for size and I want to run it more often. And of course, you can use copious amounts of Primo Masteron to bring the 7-alpha-methyl estradiol down. But I just don't want to have it in the back of my head that I always need to have raloxifene on standby, or that I need to check my estrogen frequently. And then if you're running Tren, then that's detecting as estrogen. So what is really estrogen, or what is Trenbolone? I don't have hand sensitivity testing here. So I'm just going to go extreme and do it for the community. And then document that shit, So, because I saw it with Paul. Paul had to do gyno surgery 2 times, and then he still got something left, And Aaron has also done gyno surgery 2 times, and he still got something left. So I'm like, you know what? I've always done my own way, so I'm going to do it my way, and then see what happens. And if that means I need a good amount of liposuction and reconstructive, remodeling, so be it. The money is there, and I'll probably get an influencer discount because I have more than 100,000 subscribers, so I'm sure it will generate some revenue for that company. So, guys, if you see a discount code, don't judge. Don't judge. The steroids that I used to, actually, they were free also. Yeah, so I can't complain there. So the surgery will be pricey, but we'll get it done. Guys, we're 30 minutes in. I think people are already using the timestamps to skip ahead to the anabolic terrorist. Sure. Because I saw a huge spike the last time for the last episode, and we did quite well there. So let's get started. Let's get started by classifying to S, A, B, C, D, E, F tier the oral anabolic steroids. Now, we're just going to stick to the popular ones, the tried and proven, the commonly used, because there's a boatload of oral steroids out there that nobody uses. So methyltrinolone, sorry.
No.
F tier, done. Nilvar, right? Quinbolone, we're going to skip over all of that. So I made
what about dimethyltrinolone? That's even better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean...
You want to die? Yeah.
Yeah. Methyltrinolone.
Yeah.
Dean, before we get started, how many source checks did you get for Dienolone acetate?
Quite a lot, and to be honest, I mean, someone even asked on Kurt's forum, asked me about it, and I mean, to be honest, is it something that I'm going to go out and hunt down exclusively? Probably not. I mean, you've got access to Tren, but the experiment this year of the 10 and 10 of each, so the 40 milligram total of both, more than sufficed for the look that was brought to the stage. So if someone wants to try it, good luck trying to find a source. But
I found a couple sources. Don't inbox me.
No, well,
leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Let's see how you get on with it. But I mean, with that, like I said, I was given 2 bottles. 1 bottle lasted the whole of that prep, and that was the end of it. The other second
auction
bottle,
it off. The last bottle, auction it off.
Sign it and auction it off.
Yeah, put it on eBay. Let people bid. Why not? What is this, polygraph or poly or polyfarm, where you can bet on outcomes of the election and stuff? Yeah, just bet it, just auction it off, man.
And then someone will load it up, all 10 mils of it, and off to go to the moon. But yeah, I think like that was raised in Kurt's forum. It's an interesting one, but maybe a little overhyped.
It's just an intermediate.
I never got any issues with Tren either, so I mean, for me the sensitivity aspect was probably a little lost, but most definitely the two of them combined brought a nice look that it was nice to see the outcome. If someone wants to try it as a bulking agent instead of Tren, off you go and see what sort of if you do have issues with mental side effects or mood, maybe the Dian might serve you better.
You should just trade it for a bottle of Stenbolone acetate or dihydrotestosterone enanthate. That's just as rare. So if you have some injectable Stenbolone, close the ball, yeah. Well, you can get those eye drops. Those are still available, or the cream. But yeah, DHT enanthate. People are like, Steve, what do you think about DHT enanthate? I said, well, find me a source. And I'll gladly run it after his gyno experiment, because I heard a lot of good reviews, but I wasn't able to source the powders so, yeah. Yeah, N of 1. Okay, so let's get started with the oral steroids. Let's start with Dianabol, the only oral steroid that actually metabolizes into methyl estradiol. I'm going to put it in F, but I'll let you guys talk first.
Okay.
It's, you want to go? Well, interesting, but I can see maybe why. In terms of like historically, if we look back at what was utilized as an oral anabolic, if you want to put it that way, that would have been the first choice. Is it today's first choice? Most definitely not. Does it do what it's supposed to do? I'd argue probably not, considering, the aromatization aspect. Yes, will it put size on you? Yeah, if you want size, but is that muscle tissue size that you retain when it's stopped being used? Probably not. So yeah, I can see where you put a F. I probably lean into it a little bit, and in that sense, does it still serve some level of purpose? Maybe from this old school approach of front loading orals in, but again, you're front loading D-ball in to get a load of water retention that carries over to some level of strength. That I think there's other ways that it can be done than relying on D-ball. But in terms of like the first exposure that you get, a lot of 16 or 17-year-olds getting access to orals straight away, it's sort of like, oh, I'll take D-ball. But they're being sold D-ball on the premise of that whole thing of size, but the size is just bloat. So I think, I'd be somewhere between E and F. Has some merit, but I think there's better options.
I'll go with E as well, just for the simple fact that it's a class 2. So it's going to magnify a class 1 like Trenbolone. So it does have some use there. I mean, I would just take Anadrol instead. They're just a better drug. Yeah, and you got to give it some credit for being the first, right, anabolic steroid really for performance. Is it something that I think most people should use? No, it's just, most of it's fluid, glycogen.
Yeah. Did you guys ever experiment with injectable Dianabol? That seems to be hitting the market nowadays.
No.
Because there might, like, of course, you get a lot of, like, the intestinal tract has aromatase enzymes, right? So you get a lot of conversion of Dianabol into methyl estradiol when you take it orally. You can bypass that to a certain extent if you take it sublingually. Again, the non-conventional route that Kurt doesn't like. That's okay.
I'm old school. Just take the damn pills.
Yeah. So, but then you also have injectable Dianabol. And nowadays, it seems to be brewed in MCT oil, so you don't have the risk for inflammatory carrier oils that just wreck your health. I think at 50 milligrams for 1 milliliter. And that seems to be reasonably PIP-free as well. I never tried that. I tried injectable Anadrol many times. That was fucking legendary. You just can't get it right now. So I do think that injectable Dianabol would be E tier. I'm still going to put oral Dianabol in F tier because it's basically side effects in a tablet. So if you want to know which side effects you're going to get from steroids, then Dianabol is the one, right?
Yep.
Well, you get water retention to the blood, you get a nosebleed and blood pressure shoots to the roof. Well, you get acne. Well, you get gyno. Well, hair loss you're not going to get from Dianabol because it converts into methyl estradiol. And even then, you might get other terrible side effects. So if you want to turn into the stereotypical bodybuilder that's bloated, covered in acne, and has gyno, then Dianabol is your drug of choice.
Not to mention
that's why it's F tier for me. But I can concede.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I can concede and put it in E tier. That's fine because if I were to run Anadrol again, I would prefer to do injectable Dianabol.
Lower back pumps as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Gives you
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
it's like a massive erection in your, in the back of your, and it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. So I made a video about lower back pumps like 2 years ago or something on how to resolve it. And I remember I had it was either Anadrol or Dianabol. I had these lower back pumps which just wouldn't go away, right? From squats or hack squats and stuff. It just wouldn't go away. And one time I got so upset that I did reverse hyperextensions until I couldn't walk. So I did that after every leg workout for like 6 weeks. And then I never got lower back pumps again. I think I destroyed the tissue, or I just made so much space in between the muscle cells that it never got a lower back pump after that. But I couldn't walk. I couldn't fucking walk. I had to lay on the floor for an hour after that. I would just do hyperextensions and reverse hyperextensions until I destroyed the tissue.
It's one of the worst feelings you'll ever get, that sort of lower back pump, that no matter what you do, legs up, legs down, stretching, hanging, however much taurine or whatever else you want to throw into the system, just that lower back pump just doesn't go.
No.
So yeah. No.
Yeah.
Not for me.
So if you want to get rid of it, hyperextensions until it explodes. Yeah. Just punish it. So you want to be pumped? Here you go. There you go. Here's your pump. So yeah, no more Dianabol for me unless I want to grow my gyno even more, and then I'll just take oral conventionally. No sublingual administrations for the maximum amount of methyl estradiol production. And then let's see what happens. I'll probably turn into the Michelin Man. So let's move over to another one that's basically the opposite. Let's move over to Proviron. So that's the only oral steroid that really has been shown to have some sort of aromatase inhibiting effect. And it also really lowers SHBG. Like, it has an affinity for the SHBG compared to diet testosterone of 600 something. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a calculated value, so how much can you really extrapolate from that? But if you want to crush your SHBG, like you're doing a carnivore diet, high fat, low carbohydrate diet, and your growth hormone levels are low, then Proviron is the one to bring it down. Is there any other practical application of Proviron though?
Sometimes you might get someone say, "Oh, there's studies to improve sperm health and spermatogenesis." There's that extrapolative study that, to be honest, I don't think it's worth.
There's studies from the 70s.
A pinch of salt, basically. But like you said,
Why go with Proviron when halotestin does the exact same thing? So, but you can have angry sex on Proviron and actually get satisfied. You probably get your partner pregnant. I think if I pull all those studies together, I think the percentage on halotestin was a little bit higher compared to Proviron, but there was a lot of live birth rates. Yeah, of people who were otherwise infertile. Yeah, it's quite funny what they did in the 60s and 70s with these kinds of steroids.
Yeah,
I mean. I guess I'm not going to say like modern times, but it has sort of maybe become a staple that you see a lot of coaches put Proviron in a setup of creating more free hormone. Is it, is it really necessary when you've got, a boatload of other androgens in play? Probably not. You're just throwing something into the mix for the sake of it. Some application. If we were to rank this, like the last time from an anabolic performance aspect, probably in the middle at C or D for me, because there's nothing, like, it has some positive benefits towards SHBG, but is it giving you any sort of anabolic effect or androgenic effect? No. So it's sort of...
Well, possibly androgenic, right? It's not going to do anything anabolic at all. It's probably the only like common steroid that doesn't grow any tissue. I would give it an E. Right. Yeah. I think the only practical use perhaps would be if you were running something like the guy in the 70s, like if they would run Deca, Primo, a little bit of D-ball for the estrogen, right? They would add a little bit of Proviron in typically to add some level of, androgenic activity into that cycle, right? Because Primo's not very androgenic. Perhaps if you were running like a Deca only cycle or something and you needed some DHT, I don't know. Outside of that, I don't see much use. Sometimes it's used in a prep cycle to create a little more hardness or vascularity, which it might do. But again, if you're using all that other stuff, is it really going to add anything?
More on top of the Superdrol or Winstrol? Probably not.
No. And I think that's why Victor Black originally banned me, because I questioned his use of Proviron and these things. And he was like, "What the fuck is wrong with Proviron?" I was like, well, what's right about Proviron?
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering too.
And
there's this floating rumor that one of the high-level prep coaches is megadosing Proviron with his athletes and creating a very unique look, like 200 milligrams to 300 milligrams Proviron per day. He does all the Olympians.
It flattens your wallet out so much that you can see the striated glutes through your pants.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't eat any food anymore.
Yeah.
Don't have money for cheesecake, so you don't cheat on your diet. Yeah. It's for me, the only practical application I see is when you're drug free, your SHBG is high. We're talking about 60, 70, 80, 100, whatever. And then you start at a low dose of 6.25 milligrams once or twice per day. Because, the scientific evidence shows that Proviron at lower dosages is selective and non-suppressive, improves fertility parameters. And usually that difference in lowering your SHBG is not enough to kind of offset the estradiol. If anything, the estradiol comes down more than the testosterone comes up. So I see it as basically a first start into the hormonization journey to kind of see how you respond to this altered hormone profile. That being said, I would still start with HCG monotherapy because the difference is so much more significant.
Yeah, you're really trying to improve that free hormone hypothesis setting of, putting it in, lowering SHBG, more free testosterone equals less SHBG produced. I'd be in agreement with Kurt that I just don't see it as in terms of like, if we're looking at performance enhancing, there's other things that will do a much better job.
Yeah. And realistically, how much free hormone is going to be beneficial, not just get excreted? Right, like you don't want to crush your SHBG.
It just gets glucuronidated, and then all you have is albumin to transport it around. So, and again, I made this whole deep dive on about the sexual binding globin receptor complex, which does hold a little bit of merit. How much it contributes in the bigger picture with growth hormone and insulin, couple percent. But it's better to have a couple percent and lower your burden than to have 0%.
Yes,
and your free hormones are all over the place. Spilling over into androgenic or into tissue where you don't want any androgenic activity.
Like the non-genomic skin receptors?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a bad joke. There's no such thing. That's called 5-alpha reduction. I'm going to get shit for that.
Yeah, we always get shit for something, man. We always get shit for something. All right, so Proviron, E-tier, because it does have some limited applications.
Yeah, and it's not horrible. Right? At the end of the day, it's not methylated at carbon-17, so it's not really causing any liver stress. So, right, similar to oral Primo.
Yeah, but I don't see it has any place for people on cycle, because Masteron, Primo, Winstrol will all lower your SHBG to a certain extent. They will lower your estrogen to a certain extent, right? Or at least the Primo does for most people. And so the only practical application I see for Proviron is for naturals with high SHBG. And then you start, again, it's at a low dose of a quarter tablet once or twice per day. And I've recommended this to several drug-free guys who just don't want to inject, don't want to take SARMs, don't care about getting any bigger. They just want to improve their libido a little bit. And then that's exactly what's accomplished. They feel better, they look better, job done. You know, are they natural? No, because they're taking steroids, but they claim natural. So it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. All right. Moving on to something a little bit more exciting. I will keep the best stuff for last, though, because otherwise people are going to cut off. This is an interesting one. There are SARMs and steroidal SARMs. Right? We have selective androgen receptor modulators. Some of them are steroidal. So YK11 is a steroidal SARM that has been shown to increase follistatin levels in vivo and in rodent model, or in vitro and in rodent models. I'm going to add it to my next cycle. It's on the way. So I want to see if I can take that sublingually before bed to increase my follistatin levels at night, because myostatin tends to go up in the middle of the night around the same time the growth hormone peaks, to see if I can elicit an additional anabolic response on top of the other shit that I'm taking. I've never taken a SARM in my life besides Ostrine, which gave me a terrible effect. It basically kicked off the testosterone, so I got weaker. I couldn't even squat anymore. It was insane. I was doing like 3-plate squats for 12 reps, and then I could do 9, and then I could do 7, and then I could do 5. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I threw the Ostrine in the trash. But I'm willing to give this YK11 a try, but I've never tried it. I've done the research. It looks promising in the 5 studies that are published. There's another 5 or 7 excretion studies for doping analysis, but we don't count those. Did you guys ever look into YK11? Or is it immediately off the books because it's classified as a SARM?
No, I tried it before at 5 milligrams. As a
spill the beans.
But to be honest, I didn't see much benefit from it. It was 8 weeks ran underneath, like testing Primo. I didn't see any. But again, I'm not your typical bodybuilder, like mass monster that was trying to put on massive amounts of size. So I can't say, exactly from a follistatin, inhibition perspective that might have been lost on me. It was sort of ones like you where it's sort of like, well, let's see if I added this in with, testing Primo that I know is predictable. What X plus Y plus Z effect am I getting? Didn't see anything. But again, maybe if, I was pushing, 250, 260, what you're aiming for, maybe then you're going to see something beneficial where you hit a plateau at 255, and that might be what takes you to 260, 265. But for someone like me, where max body weight for me has been like 235, and now I'm like between 196 and 204, it's probably lost on some of my size.
So why did you go with the 5 milligram dose over the commonly used Reddit dose of 30 milligrams per day?
Again, just lowest minimum amount that I wanted to see what I get on top of, a known anchored dosage for my physique. And it just, again, maybe had I taken more, like anything else, maybe there might have been some. But, I'm always willing to sort of see what the research translates over. Same like with SLU. Yeah. Let's see what carries over. But I didn't see anything personally. But again, like I said, it could be lost on someone like me that doesn't really want to push huge amounts of size.
So there's one study where they administer between 350 to 700 milligrams per 1 kilogram of body weight to mice. And that's the study that they usually quote, where you have the dissected mice and you see the control mice versus the myostatin inhibited mice, where you see that they're like 4 times the size. if you translate those dosages, 700 milligrams per 1 kilogram, for 110 kilogram bodybuilder, that's 6,300 milligrams YK11. 6,300 milligrams YK11.
If you took 6,000 milligrams a day of anything, it would do that.
Even Proviron.
Yeah, probably even Proviron.
So that brings us full circle to the 3 gram masterone cycles, right? As long as you should take a boatload of it,
it'll work.
It'll work. So I'll start with 30 milligrams because that's basically the highest dose that has been documented, and I feel that that's sustainable based on the blood work reviews that I've seen on YK11 alone. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to take it all sublingually though. So the Anavar or the Anadrol and the YK11 will all be done sublingually because I don't want anything passing through my intestinal tract because I had a little bit of distension and digestive issues after taking 10 milligrams Anavar for 5 months straight. So sublingually, and then I'm going to spit, not swallow. So let's see what gets absorbed. Yeah. There's injectable YK11 though, but that's not in good care oils that you can find. Gert, any research or personal experience?
I only know the studies you know of. I've never tried it, and I don't know anyone who's used it that I know didn't really get a lot out of it. Yeah. But again, they weren't using 6 grams of it.
Yeah.
I would say, so with the steroidal SARMs, I mean, technically nandrolone, trenbolone, there's most steroids are technically steroidal SARMs, right? Because they were designed to just hit the androgen receptor. The problem is we've never been able to nail a SARM perfectly, right? We can nail a SERM. We're pretty good at the estrogen receptor. Everything always has this overflow into everything else.
Yeah, and our strain has about 80 studies behind it, and I think it's still being investigated, but all the other ones have already been discontinued and
they're
dropped. Yeah, so I'll have a look at this YK11. Might as well run that community experiment at the same time and see if I grow phenomenally, or at least the chest and the quads. And that's why I wanted to do it now because I'm not going to hit my back, my biceps, and that will grow anyway, and I don't want it to grow anymore. So I'm going to selectively train and use a selective androgen receptor modulator. Fingers crossed. Yeah. Let's see what happens. So I would say to be determined because when you read the reviews, people who rave about YK11 also sell YK11. And people who say that it didn't do anything for them are probably newbies. Not discounting Dean. Dean is clearly not a newbie, but he ran such a low dose that a bikini competitor wouldn't even get out of bed.
Pretty much. But I mean, I'm
modest.
I'm always going to be the one that's on the edge of caution. But again, the other side of it, to me,
that's what the lowest effective dose is there for, right? You start low and then you can always build your way up. My blood work is fine, and I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to cycle hard. This always happens after Mr. Olympia. I want to cycle hard because there's so many big guys.
Let's not discount maybe at some point I might have a midlife crisis in my 40s where it's just like, effing, let's just get huge for the next 4 years.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is? Well, join me in the sun, man.
I will.
You already shaved your head, right? You're already halfway there.
You're 2 bad influences.
It's called the Anabolic Round Table. We got to meet somewhere in the middle between risk averse and 18 IUs of zero stim.
My blood work looks fine, so.
Yeah, I know. You look great also. So it's we'll find a way. So I would say with YK11 to be determined, TBD, because I'm running it now alongside Mint, which is also my first time, but I'm sure I can kind of diversify what is doing what. Let's see what's next. Now we already discussed Winstrol as an injectable, but I want to go over it again as an oral because there is a bit of a difference. Between bioavailability. Between oral Winstrol and injectable Winstrol. I really love injectable Winstrol, like we highlighted. That's basically A tier or S tier. If you can get away with the post-injection pain and if you can mitigate the potential for infection, right? So oral Winstrol seems to be a little bit safer in that sense.
For men, not for women. Because
clarify.
The sex hormone binding globulin reduction that occurs when you take it orally will cause their natural androgen level to go up as well. You want to virilize a woman, give her oral Winstrol. They should use injectable if they can use and I'm not advising women use Winstrol, but they should probably use injectable because you'll miss that. That's the biggest difference. It's just how it's metabolized.
And that's one of the reasons why oral steroids crush SHBG so much more than injectables, because they go through the liver twice. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay. So all the women watching, all the 5 women of my audience are going to be on that injectable Winstrol train. Make sure you dilute it from 50 milligrams to 25 milligrams for 1 milliliter.
Although, honestly, a lot of the underground labs are not brewing it at 50. It says 50 on the bottle. It's probably 25.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold very well. Mm-hmm. Not that it holds at you, right? You got to shake it anyway, but a lot of times it literally doesn't fit. So it might be worth testing.
Maybe that's why the Winstrol I was using was so smooth, because it went through an insulin syringe.
You can like grind it like a microfine powder. A lot of labs do that now, so it's not so like the Zambon stuff that was like crystals.
Yeah.
Right? You do like an 18-gauge needle to get that stuff in.
That's what I used the first time. It worked like a charm, though.
It works. It just hurts.
Oh, it hurt terribly. Yeah. So oral Winstrol, I mean, it has its place during contest prep. I like it, but not as much as injectable Winstrol. But I do understand why people would want to run it. I just feel that the dose needs to be twice as high as injectable Winstrol. So with injectable Winstrol, I mean, at 50 milligrams per day, that's kind of like the upper ceiling. Whereas with oral Winstrol, you might ramp that up to 150.
I've gone as high as 2. I'll have some guys pre-contest run 2, but that's for a very short period of time, like peak week.
Yeah, so that's like the last 7 days, last 10 days leading into a show?
That's, 7, the most. I usually ramp at 50, 100, 150, 200, like that.
Right. And
at the very end, and then pull it out.
And that's allegedly how somebody that we know very close to us and dearly won his pro card?
Yep.
Yeah, so it does work.
It works.
Cosmetic.
No, it is. And that's something I got from a guy who was Mr. Olympia a long time ago. That's what a lot of the guys did in the 2000s.
Yeah. Dean, what do you think about oral Winstrol?
Yeah, I really like it. When it came to even my like prep, I chose it over Anavar. So, from it, like Kurt said, any guys I've coached in the past to the stage, I'll have done that sort of ramp protocol in the last 7 to 10 days. 100 milligrams is not uncommon, for sub 100 kilo bodybuilder for the last 7 days. And it is, anyone who tries this, and again, we're not advising, but you will literally get drier and drier, from 4 days out. You will wake up each day, your look improves all the way to show. And also, if you're trying to make a weight class, it just really starts to shift things in favor in terms of like pulling out that last bit of fluid that's in the sub-Q space.
Mm-hmm.
True. So we're talking about short duration leading into the contest, not long duration to the point you risk injury.
Yeah. I'd be probably the same as where we done with my injectable at least A.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah. But only for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at how you set up these orals for a show, really from like, if you're to be really, risk averse and you didn't really care, maybe 8 weeks out in, do you really need to run it from 8 weeks out? No, probably not.
Definitely not.
4 weeks out, maybe there might be merit there where you really want to start gauging someone's look from 4 weeks out. But, most people will see that benefit from, the final 2 weeks to 4 weeks out where we start introducing it for that benefit look.
Yeah, I feel that with Winstrol, whether it's injectable or oral, that the maximum cosmetic changes are already there at 10 days, maybe 14 days. Yeah. So why run it any longer? Maybe 14 days into your carb load. And if you're doing like a 4-day carb load with a 1-day cleanup and a 1-day fat load, then 2.5 weeks before the show, that's the maximum I would add it in. I added in 50 milligrams Winstrol sub-Q for 6 weeks because I wanted to see if it could help with the angioedema caused by the growth hormone, which it didn't. So that question is already answered. I still got edema, even though I did get significantly drier. And then, of course, everything gets super tight. And then by the time I was in America, I would try to reach for steak. And then my whole forearm would cramp up because I took the growth hormone out, and then the Winstrol really starts working. So I'm like, and then you can reach for it. So I would never do long-term Winstrol again. But it was a fun experiment to give that a try. Mm-hmm. Again, try it on yourself before you recommend it to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The other thing with Winstrol, I guess we're going to probably compete a head-to-head against Anavar as well, in terms of the table.
We'll save that for last. Yeah, we'll save that for last.
I just don't see some of, from a non-genomic perspective, like with Kurt and the classification, you don't see the CNS response from Winstrol from a calcium signaling perspective. So it's not something that you add in, all of a sudden you regain strength. So from a stack design or whatever, it's not something you're going to add in, all of a sudden you're going to retain strength heading into a show. It tends to be more so from the SHBG reduction and that other interaction perspective that the cosmetics change. It's not something that is going to save you strength-wise heading into a show.
Maybe that's for the best, because again, if you get really strong on Winstrol with the compromised tendons and the drying out effect, you're just getting injured. Which on the other hand, like I think everybody owes themselves like 6 weeks on oral Winstrol just to train with a little bit less bouncy reps. So they need to learn how to focus on their reps with time under tension, slow positives, slow negatives, a little bit in the stretch position. Because I think on Winstrol, you get so compromised, it's the only way to really learn it. Because if you don't train like that, you tear yourself apart. Whereas if you really learn how to go through the motion slowly and controlledly, Winstrol is probably the best handicap you can give yourself. And I think everybody needs to experience that at one point or another just to improve their training technique. Because it's you go to that by default. Because you can't train in the other way, otherwise you just get injured. So that's what I would recommend for the guys that are still on the fence on how to train. Just go on Winstrol for a couple of weeks, and then you know how to train, and then hold that thought for when you're on Anadrol and Dianabol and whatever, when you can do like bouncy reps like Ronnie Coleman, which nowadays it's probably best not to do that. So that would be my recommendation. I agree. Put it in A tier, just like injectable Winstrol. It has a couple caveats, but there's nothing else for cosmetic changes the last couple of weeks leading into a photo shoot. Because it does put the veins on your abs and your forehead and everywhere else, and your ankles specifically. So from Winstrol, let's go over to Turinabol, the only steroid designed for athletes, heavily abused.
I didn't get to rate Winstrol.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to give it an A as well.
Okay.
And I was going to say, and the only other point I think is like Dean said, it doesn't interact with, it only interacts with the subcellular androgen receptor. It's the only one beside danazol that does so. Like we talked about in the last. So it is also a pure class 2 drug, so it will magnify the effect of class 1 drugs like a Trembolone or any of those drugs as well. It can be used with Nandrolone really well because it'll lower the progesterone at the liver. Yeah. I definitely give it at least an A. I think for used correctly, not just like used all the time, but I think it definitely has. It is one of the few 4 or 5 steroids that's actually unique, that does something totally different than other drugs.
Yeah, I mean the effects that it has on your skin, just regarding the angioedema. I mean it's night and day. Yeah, it's night and day. It literally turns you from I'm not sure if I'm ready to within 4 days you're like fuck I'm ready. Yep. You know, and then all you need to do is deplete and load up, and then you look really crazy. Yep. But yeah, besides that contest prep, and maybe learning how to train a little bit more efficiently, I don't see another application. But when it does what it's supposed to do, it's really
just good at it. And the strength that they used to leverage it in sprinters and things like that, because the strength gains that you get are not nervous system. It's actually through the same mechanism that'll hurt you. It's as the tendons get stiffer, you can produce more force, except then the tendon tears.
No, that's what we saw in the Olympics, right? And Johnson tore his hamstring, and many runners tore their hamstrings on Winstrol.
And it's not going to cause any amount of real weight gain, right? No one's really, even though it's probably got the highest level of dissociation between androgenic and anabolic, right? Tendencies of any drug that I'm aware of, right? 320 versus what's the androgenic rating, like a 20 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Whether that's not necessarily accurate, but it doesn't cause any weight gain. So for an athlete doesn't need to be under the spotlight for looking large. You know, that was, I think, another reason why they used it, because it's not adding weight.
I always felt that it shifted like the subcutaneous water retention to intramuscular. It's a bit of an oversimplification to mention that, right? To mention it like that. But I always felt that you didn't really lose any water or weight on Winstrol, but it would just shift it to a more favorably cosmetic look, especially when you're flat, because some of the flatness goes away as well on Winstrol. Now, how many guys do run test and Winstrol only? right?
Not a lot.
No, mostly it's Testosterone, Maestron, Primo,
Yeah.
and Winstrol, and then maybe Superdrol, Halotestin. So that complicates the matter. But I always felt that you get some sort of positive water retention shifting from subcutaneous space to intramuscular. That's how I always looked at it. So A tier we can agree on.
Yep.
Cool. Let's move over to Turinabol. Again, the only steroid designed for athletes by the East German Bundesrepubliken under state doping plan, I don't know, some random number. So hundreds of athletes were actually administered Turinabol.
Thousands, women, children.
Yeah, women, children, unknowingly.
Yep.
And many times was labeled as dietary supplements. And many of them broke world records, but also many of these athletes had to drop out of the Olympics themselves because they got horrible side effects. Turinabol is one of the few aldosterone synthase inhibitors. So it actually lowers your aldosterone level. So cramping is very, very common on Turinabol, which is not good for athletic performance, obviously, but good for cosmetic appearance. So for the guys that suffer a lot on growth hormone or other compounds that increase aldosterone levels, this might be a method to kind of bring those levels down. Now, I've never tried that combination, high-dose growth hormone with nandrolone, et cetera, that it's known to cause water retention through aldosterone increases. But yeah, technically on paper, Turinabol should be able to mitigate that. I never got much out of Turinabol. I always saw it as like the first oral of choice to try, not Dianabol. Not Anavar, because it's hard to source when you're getting started, but Turinabol seems to be readily available. It's reasonably cheap, and you can ramp it up to 50 milligrams per day without much side effects. So personally, I would put it in C tier, nice in the middle, but I'll leave it up to you guys. How do you feel about Turinabol?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's I'm not going to say the safest, but side effects, if you had Turinabol and Dianabol side by side, which one you're going to choose as a starter, to speak. Obviously, aside from the methylation, you've got the chlorination, but how much of an impact is that halogenation having over onto your liver health versus the metal, like demethylating it? Probably
None.
Say it.
Because it's on carbon 4. It's not going to affect the liver that much.
So
It's basically D-bol that they modified with chlorocarbon 4. It's the same drug.
Yeah, it's
Right.
a combination of Clostebol and Dianabol, right?
Yep.
yeah,
I'll
I
give it
think
the same thing in the middle. C.
See, would you guys ever use Turinabol again?
No.
No.
Boring.
Boring. Yeah, it's one of those ones that you like that you sort of add it on to a basic stack to see what effect it has, and then you realize there's no real extra benefit, and you just drop it out, goes in the trash.
Yeah, I think it's a beginner steroid. I think Turinabol is a true beginner steroid, just to get your hands dirty with orals. And then if you get a good response with Turinabol, you frantically search the internet for Anavar, which I'm sure we can all agree is S tier. But let's hold out. Let's hold out with the Anavar till we discuss the other ones. But yeah, Turinabol seems to be like you tried once and you're like, it was fun. I didn't really get the results I was after.
Yeah, there's just hype because of the Germans, right? I think there's like mystique there that people get caught up in, thinking that it's going to turn you into Olympic athlete. You see it a lot in like CrossFit people and.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they need
to
to use the Turinabol because it was used in the Olympics.
Yeah. It's like using the clear, just because we was using baseball.
Oh man, the amount of drug consultations I got about that. Steve, where do you get tetrahydrogesterone? Where do you get it? I said, I don't fucking know. It's not being.
I don't know. Balco. Call Balco.
Yeah, call Balco. Patrick Arnold might know where it is.
He's probably looking for work. He'll probably make it for you.
Yeah. I mean, he's a drug designer after all.
Yeah.
He can probably design something else.
for a while now.
I'm sure. Yeah, shit. Yeah, so we got Turinabol covered, Primabol and Acetate. I think it's for girls. But even girls get better results from Primabol and Acetate injectable route.
Yeah.
I coached a lot of females back in the day when I was coaching my wife at the World Championships levels. And many of them asked for Primo and Acetate. Some of them running it already, 25 milligrams per day. Every single time I took them off. Every single time I put them on Anavar instead. And every single time they got better results for lower dose in milligrams. Some of the physique competitors figure I would put in injectable Primo, talking about 10 milligrams 3 times a week. So that's half the dose. Much better results. All right, virilization is occurring, obviously, but these girls were okay with that. It's the highest level, so they're already significantly virilized by the time they came to me. And if I were to put them on something from the beginning, I wouldn't even recommend Primo, injectable, oral, because I got the job done with Anavar in most cases, And then maybe Winstrol instead of halo testing at the end, but that's like 5 days leading into a show. Again, enough time to kind of bring the water off. So I don't see any practical application for Primo and Acetate. I can safely put it in F tier.
Yeah.
But I was going to be more generous and give it like a C or a D.
Okay. Explain.
You lose half of it in digestion. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not methylated, which makes it safe. So that's a benefit to it, right? It's not liver toxic, but you lose 50% of it.
Yeah.
For women, you could, Anavar is going to be a better drug, but you could pull it out really fast if you need to. This is a side effect. I mean, there is an injectable, there probably will be in the near future, an injectable acetate. The problem is it doesn't hold very well in solution.
So talking about 25 milligrams per milliliter.
Yeah, it's super low. It's like less than 30. Yeah. So
I said it's a pharmaceutical route where they just, let's make this as unappealing for bodybuilders
exactly. So
as we
no
can.
One's going to steal it. Yeah, because you're going to inject 40 cc's of it a week. That's probably part of that equation. But I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it. Just
what are they researching it for medical applications?
Same kind of stuff. Just muscle wasting. Yeah.
Muscle wasting.
Yeah. Okay. It does, right? I think since it was discovered that the one metabolite acts as an AI, I think it has potential there for certain things.
Okay.
I mean, I think Primo is a great drug. I just
Primo
don't know about,
Acetate.
exactly.
It's nothing better. That's fucking S tier hands down. But yeah, oral Primo Acetate. With all the alternatives, with oral Anavar or injectable Primo Acetate, I don't see a reason to run it. And it's been romanticized a lot. Like, it's Primo Acetate. It's shit. It's the next best thing. And all these women are running it. And in reality, they virilize twice as hard. And they get half the results on a lower dose of Anavar. So I just think it's F tier for me. But
sure.
Dean, can we meet in the middle? Where do you want to put it?
No, I mean, I'd agree somewhere between E and F. I mean, not to mention they're dosed at 2.5 milligrams, so you're taking about a handful of 10 to get 20
ones.
To the pharmaceutical to get 25 milligrams.
I have a source for that, by the way, in Japan. 5 milligrams.
Is it still made by Bayer?
Yeah.
Is it? They make nibble? Or they're not calling it nibble anymore. I don't know what they're calling it.
Let me see.
No, nibble was under shearing, right? They probably changed the name. Nibble.
Yeah. Bayer Yakuhin Limited in Japan.
Awesome.
Methanol acetate 5 milligram tablets. 12 for $40. Well, we put it in F tier, so maybe we can bring the price down.
Yeah.
If for a change, instead of raising the price, we can bring the price down to maybe $20. It's total shit. So when the price comes down on this Japanese source, I'm going to stock up. No way. So let's put it in E tier then. It's not total trash. Actually, it is total trash. I'm going to put it in F tier. I don't see a reason for it. Fuck it. It's total trash. I'm sorry, but I would rather run Proviron because at least it has some sort of merit. Sorry, ladies. All right, let's move over. What else we got? One of Kurt's favorites, Anadrol. Go first.
I'll give it an A. Right?
I agree.
It's not the safest drug, but it's a damn good drug. It's proven itself since the 50s. I mean, it is a good, if you if you want to add size, it's probably one of the best drugs out there for size. It also reduces body fat, right? It seems to not be as rough on lipids as people think, right? When you look at your lab, my labs didn't really get that messed up on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's again, it's a class 2. It's super unique. It's non-genomic, pretty much entirely. No known affinity for the androgen receptor, where the classic AR magnifies the shit out of tren, right? I mean, like Dan Duchaine said 40 years ago at this point, almost 50 years ago, right? He said, nothing will put size on you like test, tren, and Anadrol. And you know what? He was right about that one.
He was right.
He was wrong about EQ, but he was right about that.
So what do you think about this metabolite that you get from hepatic, what was it called? Dean, there's one metabolite from Anadrol that has a very high androgenicity that might contribute to the anabolism also from Anadrol. Mestanolone. Not methasterone, mestanolone. So mestanolone is a metabolite of oxymetholone. It was branded as Ermalone, amongst others, and it has a very high androgenic rating. And of course, side effects like masculinization, acne, hair growth, voice changes, etc. So this is one of the reasons why you can't go too hard on the Anadrol for women. But men seem to be able to tolerate Anadrol quite favorably. But there's not so much scientific evidence on mestanolone.
And it was invented in 1935, so it's been around forever.
Yeah, it's been around forever, right? Developed well before Masteron, well before Superdrol, methasterone.
And the Germans messed around with that stuff too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember reading in the Turinabol studies, that they were also on Dianabol and Anadrol.
They tried
and
other things.
Orals. Yeah, sublingual testosterone or methyl testosterone, right? That they tried quite a few different things back in the day. Yeah, I really like Anadrol. I mean, that's the reason why I'm running it right now. It can cause gyno in some people, or at least aggravated tissue, cause a little bit of puffy nipples, could be water retention. But yeah, there's nothing else, man. And it's, of course, the appetite suppression that you get from it after 2 to 3 weeks is a little bit substantial, but I found that you can mitigate that by taking it sublingually or through the injectable route. Now, okay, injectable, you would need to go with something that's brewed properly with MCT oil, maybe a little bit of benzobenzoate and non-synthetic carrier oils. So no ethyl oleate, no propylene glycol, no glycol. That's trash.
You think you need to use grain alcohol or something, right? Because it doesn't, with BA and BB, Anadrol won't stay a liquid.
Really?
It turns to like Elmer's glue when you try to mix it. So they do need to use, like, I believe grain alcohol is the base.
That's not the best.
I'm not 100% sure. I just know if you mix it with the standard BA/BB, it just clumps.
Ah, right. So maybe they just use pure MCT oil then.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It just turns into a sticky mess.
I'll have to ask Roman Fritz because he
would know.
He would know. He loves his injectable Anadrol. Unfortunately, I don't have access to that, so I do sublingually and then spit out the rest because I don't want any appetite suppression or hepatic issues, digestive issues going forward. So how much I'm absorbing from the 50 milligrams that I take sublingually, fingers crossed it's 90% over the 20 minutes that I keep it in my mouth as I prepare my other injections. But yeah, I think Anadrol is my second favorite oral steroid. I like Superdrol as well, but it's a 10-day, 14-day love affair, and then you feel toxic as shit.
Yeah.
So we'll get into Superdrol after this. Dean, what do you have to contribute about Anadrol?
Definitely one that, if we have strength athletes listening, it tends to be the more favorable one that we're using for powerlifters, strong men, sort of that during that wave loading end of peaking for a strength for a powerlifting meet or something that sort of tends to go in alongside maybe halo testing, all depending. But yeah, I rate it. Like Kurt said, there's a nice synergy to it. Is it strictly anabolic again in terms of like the drug itself is generating the tissue as opposed to amplifying the effects of the other things? It's definitely something I think that you're going to run by itself for. It's as an anabolic, but it's definitely a good adjuvant to a base stack. So yeah, I'd agree. At least A anyway. The appetite suppression, I mean, we can get into some of the theories I have surrounding how to mitigate appetite suppression. We look at what in theory might be happening biochemically. It's quite easy to mitigate, and I've seen it work countless times.
Good. Yeah, we'll get into that after this classification. So we can safely put it to the A tier with almost S tier capabilities if it wasn't so liver toxic at certain, not liver toxic, but if it didn't kill your appetite or raise your hematocrit, which again, you can both mitigate with, the practices that we're going to discuss. So I would almost vouch for it for S tier if you can mitigate it, because Anadrol's shit. I fucking love it. Let's put it in A tier though, because people will not be as diligent as we are. Because the hematocrit can shoot up quite a bit. I mean, that's what it's prescribed for against anemia. And unlike Superdrol or Mastrone, Anadrol, even at 100 milligrams per day, will significantly increase your hematocrit if you're not putting anything into place to control that. Plus, if it gives you sleep apnea, then from the increased weight gain and the thick neck that you develop, then you really shoot up in hematocrit. Mm-hmm. So again, some caution in this advice. So let's put it in A tier alongside Winstrol, and I'll leave it there. Next one is Superdrol. I love it, but it's toxic as shit. I was running it for the Mr. Olympia, and after 5 days, I felt a little bit off. And after 14 days, I was ready to throw it in the trash. But man, my entire body mutated in those 14 days. 30 milligrams per day. It was great.
Oh, God.
It's, you hate this stuff, right?
No,
Steve.
No, but again, going back to the Dianabol, you want shin splint in a bottle, then fire away 20, 30 milligrams of Superdrol. Your shins are going to be in absolute agony. Forget about lower back pumps. Shin splints.
When you blow up your bicycle tire, and then when it's hard, it's ready, you put in 3 extra pumps, so you don't have to bump it up for a while. That's how I feel in Superdrol. I got 3 pumps too many, and then I'm like, I just perpetually huge the whole time. And then when you start eating, you just gain so much size. So I was like ripping shirts. So I did a lot of shopping because everything felt tight after 2 weeks on Superdrol. And you do feel a little bit off when you take it. It's like Anadrol is a cleaner. It's a less of a clean look, but you feel cleaner on the inside. Whereas with Superdrol, it's a cleaner look on the outside, but you feel a little bit sickly on the inside. And I think it really messed with my immune system because my white blood cells were 8,000, which is high for being on cycle, and my neutrophils and lymphocytes were off. So I feel it makes you more susceptible to getting sick. And you hear these stories of guys getting sick in the shows, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's Superdrol because it's technically on paper, based on scientific evidence, it's the most liver toxic oral steroid you can take. Even though my liver enzymes were not that high, maybe 80, 70.
Yeah, at least in rats, but they metabolize it differently. So, and that's what they were looking at when Lilly and what was the Mexican pharmacy. The two of those companies got together and they Syntec and Lilly did it together. Right? They did Masteron, Superdrol and Anadrol, and basically the FDA looked at Superdrol and they were like, no way. And then they also made methasterone, which is like a dimer of Superdrol, right? They put that together. So if you look into all the case reports for Superdrol and methasterone, it's 100% liver failure. All of the case reports on human subjects, liver failure. But also in combination with with Anadrol, you don't have any of that. No,
there's 1 or 2 cases of liver failure in Anadrol, but it's the same with halotestin.
Yeah.
One or two case studies.
There was a case of liver failure, a death from Primo and Acetate. There was one case study in the 70s. The person they were in liver failure, and their doctor gave them Primo Acetate to help wasting at that time, and they ended up dying. They blamed it on the Primo Acetate, which was probably not the cause, but it's on the record of killing someone, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you can find it with anything.
Yeah. So. Yeah, Superdrol it's a bit of a love-hate relationship. I'm gonna have to put it in D tier because it works so well during contest prep, but it's also
you feel awful.
You feel awful. Yeah, I don't know. Dean, do you have anything to contribute?
No, well, remember we discussed obviously with peak week. It is definitely 20. If you are in contest condition and you run 20 milligrams, you know, similar to sort of wave load of the Winstrol, 20 milligrams of Superdrol, when you are absolutely diced, you end up with this sort of, like you said, this extra pumped feeling where everything just gets so much tighter. But again, you know, in terms of toxicity and the strictness that you have to be in like strict contest condition to get that effect, somewhere between C and D. I mean, you know, if you look historically at, you know, with it being a pro hormone, you know, no wonder it was a case reports of liver failure when people thought, you know, this is harmless. I'm going to take 3 or 4 of these capsules and go train.
Yeah. And it would all make it in 15 or 20 milligrams back in the day. So they would take pretty high dosages, and it would be sold at GNC, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's not uncommon for when you do utilize it out of the mall that you will increase your strength, you know, 10, 15% very rapidly from it. So it's, you know, like you said, it works, but just toxicity wise, it just rules it down further down the list.
Yeah. It's a shame though, because it's a lovely compound, but again, it's clearly toxic. It's probably the most toxic oral steroid that you can take. But it works like a charm. So I do see some practical application for it. But yeah, it makes you feel horrible, but it makes you look good also. So I remember the last workout that I did at Fit Club at Las Vegas. That's when really the Superdrol started kicking in 2 weeks into it. And I was doing, you know, you're on the leg press, just loading plates after plates after plates. And at one point the leg press was full. I'm like, why can I still do 12 reps? You know, I couldn't walk after that, obviously. And this is a new leg press that I never used, so it really felt well. You know, people were looking at me like, nobody loads up the leg press like this in this gym. So, well, it's a Superdrol, baby. Of course, in America, you can't really crack that joke because people get a little bit paranoid. Talking about steroids openly. Like here in Thailand, you could just crack that joke. But in America, it's like, yeah, I had a lot of food. I went to IHOP. And
IHOP. Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, Cracker Barrel. I had a lot of carbohydrates there. So yeah, it's if you want to hit PRs, then Superdrol is the way to go, but you'll feel horrendous while hitting those PRs. Yeah. Let's put it in D tier. I'm
good with that.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Halotestin. Now, you two had a huge argument online. I had Ty and Clark
Honestly,
on. And
the best part about that argument was the video he did, the scathing video he did about me after, where he's visibly shaken. He was like actually having a nervous breakdown while he's making fun of me. And someone said in the comment section, someone said, "You're just a dude in a black t-shirt. He has a PhD."
Yeah.
He was like actually having some sort of emotional episode during that.
Well, let's put it this way.
He took it quite personal. I don't understand why.
We must be 5 or 6 months later. I'm still waiting on those sources to be sent to me.
So I asked,
politely requested that I will gladly read these studies. Absolutely, I'd love this. And then I was sort of just like, yeah, but I'm going to send these studies over and then we're going to change your mind. And you're like, well, just send me the study then, please. I want to read the study that I cannot find online anywhere that you said you have access to. Send me the study.
You and I don't have access to, but he has access to this thing.
Yeah, so that's what I found a bit weird. Anyway, you know, what he talked about halotestin only cycles did turn out to be true based on the scientific evidence. And I was able to find most of the studies from my halotestin deep dive. But yeah, I think you went about it the wrong way.
What was the safety thing? It was the safety thing that wasn't true. And he was recommending it for women and children.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
No,
right?
That's true.
There's a reason why it's not prescribed that way.
And the problem is, like, I went through every study that I could find on halotestin. So I read 300, 400 studies. And I'm thorough with my deep dives, as you guys know. And then you guys provided some extra studies, you know, through your, what is it called, academic resources. So I put all of that together and I linked with full citations my entire halotestin deep dive, and safety and efficacy data was not studied like you would expect. It's a fucking cliff note. Just like in the Masteron studies where they say hair loss and virilization was not observed in one sentence, funded by Syntax. Right, so So then you already have to say like, well, okay, if you really want safety and efficacy data, I want to see full blood work before, during, and after. I want to see organ imaging. I want to see fibro scans. I want to see heart enlargement studies like they do with Nandrolone. That's when you really know if it's safe and efficacious. But I mean, to be fair, most of the steroids have not been studied to that extent, besides Nandrolone, Anavar, and testosterone.
And Gino and I were just looking at the structure of it. You can tell by looking at the structure of it that it's toxic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean
no, but not everybody has a biochemistry.
No, I understand that, but that's why we were trying to explain to them. When you look at this, like you're like, holy smokes, sure, it's a great drug, but it doesn't mean it's healthy.
So how can you see that? Please
the
break it down for the
halogenation was a carbon 9. It just when you add that to a drug, it generally makes it pretty toxic.
Removing a fluorine group, fluorine
displacement.
You know, fluorines are. When we were sort of going through drug design and pharmacology, you want to make any drug superior, stick a load of fluorines onto it. That's like, an unspoken pharmacological, setup of, you add a fluorine onto a molecule and all of a sudden you're going to change the dynamics of how it interacts from a receptor perspective, but also from a half-life. No doubt the data, there's a lot of case reports of where we seen obviously the case report of a woman who basically had a grated cheese liver who had been prescribed halotestin during cancer treatment, and then you have all these compounding factors where she's cancer, she has chemotherapeutic drugs being used, but then on top of it she's taking halotestin for 14 months and then dying of a grated, like her liver basically turned to mush. So was that, the chemotherapy? Was it the cancer? Or was it the halotestin that tipped it over the edge? We weren't disputing the fact that maybe there is some level of safety when you dive into the studies on, can you use it in a controlled fashion? Well, of course, anything can be used in a controlled fashion. Is it, safe to go around saying, well, this is a safe compound to be using? That was sort of where me and Kurt went, hang on a minute. This being promoted as a safe drug absolutely is not.
No. And I have children. I don't want kids watching those videos and being like, he single-handedly increased the production out of China of Halo 4-fold. The sales that year of halotestin went up 4-fold.
Yeah.
Because of that, which is terrifying because who was taking it? Right? It's not a drug that I generally don't use.
Ty and Clark also likes to promote oral only cycles, so I can't imagine. Right? And Ty and I respect you a lot, but it might not be the right way to approach, information. Because if you start promoting oral only cycles and it's halotestin that is the drug that you're talking or raving about, who are you empowering? Right? It's not adults that are going to do that. It's the guys that run SARMs, and SARMs are already deleterious. So if you run halotestin long-term solo and you don't even know how to mitigate side effects because you're entry-level bodybuilder or not even bodybuilder, just a recreational lifter, I don't know. It's doing more damage than good. That's why we go deep and make it complicated so people get inspired to learn more,
I mean, you have to circle back to the case reports on Superdrol, and that is a pro-hormone.
Yeah.
Readily accessible, and what happens there to a lot of people. So, using that as an example, it wasn't that we were speaking out against the actual science. It was just when we're talking safety, and that goes back to episode 1 where we all had the discussion over safety. Turn around saying something that we know, from a lot of blood work. We've all seen people's blood work who have used halotestin, real halotestin. We know what happens between the lipid and liver panel when someone has used halotestin.
You can smell it when you read the blood work results. You see the lipids, you see the liver enzymes, you see the gamma GT, and you're like, I know exactly what you're running. You don't even need to ask,
From that perspective, we don't. To be politically correct, we do need scientific studies on safety data. Is that going to be done at this point? Absolutely not. So we're looking at anecdotal reports of what we've all seen from years of experience, and we know that there is toxicity to it. And should be spoken about rather than saying, oh, well, you know, in the scheme of it, yeah, no problem, throwing 20 milligrams of halotestin daily for your anabolic cycle, which we know absolutely is far removed from what we'd want.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do see some practical applications, again, leading into a contest prep in combination with Winstrol or Superdrol or something like that. But again, that's only for contests. I don't see it suitable for an oral-only cycle or any other kinds of contest. Yes, you can go to the scientific evidence and say that it improves semen parameters, but we have much better practices out there nowadays without virilization or potential for liver stress. Right? You use some fucking recombinant HCG or FSH, for fuck's sake. I did pretty well on those compounds.
Yes, you did.
No angry sex, unfortunately, but that's okay. Should have thrown in the halo. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put it in E tier because it's not useless. But it's only for contest preps, which is weird because we're also saying that Winstrol is for contest prep. But we're putting that in A tier. So technically, if we're thinking about contest prep, shouldn't we put halotestin in S tier? Because there is nothing like halotestin leading into the contest. It makes you strong, makes you positive aggression, it wakes you up, literally, gets you out of this diet brain. How do we want to approach it? I
mean, it has that, you know, if you viewed it in the same light as Anadrol for, you know, strongman, powerlifter, great efficacy for, again, during those wave loading phases for aggression, acclimatizing, you know, neural stimulation, neural drive. Outside of that, you know, again, if you need to use halotestin, you know, from a contest prep perspective, and you need to use that to get aggressive, to go train, to lift heavier, then maybe you're not recovering properly. You know, it's, you know, there's no denying also that there is some level of cosmetic benefit to halotestin. But to be honest, when you add halotestin on top of Winstrol, it's more like the Winstrol that's driving the cosmetic benefit. The halotestin is probably not doing a huge amount on top of the Winstrol by itself. So,
yeah. And nowadays with our mitochondrial support stacks, nobody's tired anymore leading into the contest. Because all the guys that I met at the gala, they were like, yeah, we watched the Anabolic Roundtable, and I talked to Dean personally, and I talked with you, and I'm running the SLU in the Methylene Blue. They're all happy-go-lucky running around, talking with everybody, socializing, and they're on cloud nine. So yeah, maybe those guys are excused from halotestin because they're just so energetic that they don't need halotestin as a pickup, basically. No more injectable ephedrine and no more halotestin, just to get you to the end.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how you have to view, like in the past, if you were under-recovered, underslept, were we using these compounds as a complete crutch? Again, I've said this before, if you're not recovering properly, dosages are going to go up to compensate for that lack of recovery. Yeah. So if your mitochondria are optimal, your glucose turnover, fat burn, and all these things, you probably don't need halotestin. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've told anyone I coached to use halotestin, whereas, you know, maybe a few years ago when we were only getting to grips with some of the intricacies of mitochondrial health, we would have said, you know, 10 milligrams halotestin for the final like 20 days to get someone through those training sessions. Again, could be an artifact of that under recovery that we were just compensating for.
Yeah, because it's also reasonably new, right? Yeah. Just shifting your training modalities based on how you recover and really focusing on the sleep and not hammering the Trenbolone anymore so you can actually sleep. We've been doing that for the last 5 years, and it's actually around the time I stopped coaching to focus on the YouTube channel. So all the stuff that I learned in the meantime, I didn't really get to apply much to competitors because I didn't really coach full-time athletes anymore. You know, I gave consultations, but, you know, and you two are still actively coaching. So, of course, the game has changed.
I've only used Halo with one guy this year. Of all the guys I prepped, only one guy.
Okay, so we can safely move it to D tier then. It's just...
and he was really suffering with lack of energy, feeling hard. Like it was kind of the only thing to get him right. But again, I didn't know about the SLU and all that stuff. That was before we had discussed that. So it was just the only tool in the toolbox I had that would kind of get them out. Most guys I would, there's mental problems from taking Halo. I'm not well on halotestin.
No, you know, it's weird because some people feel good on it.
Big Paul says he feels great on it.
Yeah.
I flip flop between wanting to kill people and wanting to kill myself on it. Like you just sleep in your damn car because you can't talk to anyone.
No,
you know,
you hate yourself for hating everything else,
and it just, I don't know. That's to me, that's the difference between that and Winstrol. They're just mentally, they're totally different drugs. Yeah, and Anadrol, you feel fine. Anadrol, I feel good on.
Yeah, I feel great right
now. I think it might, like the appetite thing might occur later if you use it too long, but I don't get hateful on Anadrol.
On halotestin and Tren, you get hateful. Yeah.
I don't even get it that much on Tren. Halo, I mean, my wife had asked me to take multiple walks the last time I used Halo because I would yell at her about dumb things for no reason.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's put it in E. Fuck. Do we have to put it in F tier then or E tier?
E's fine. I mean, it has a use, right? It's not a useless drug.
Use. Okay.
It just, I don't recommend it for 13-year-olds.
Shots fired.
Well, we have a responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Outside,
I know. I agree.
We do
agree,
it, you know, and I take that seriously because people listen to what we say. Yeah. I'm not trying to make people sick.
No, you saw at the Mr. Olympia Expo that there's some 16-year-olds coming up to us. I'm like, fuck. Don't watch the shit, man. Yeah. Don't watch. But they're all natural. And they're all like, yeah, you're deterring me for this hormone journey. You said, well, I'll see you in 10 years because you should be doing a lot of research until then.
And learning how to train, learning how to eat.
Yeah.
You know, the basics first, perhaps.
Yeah. That's too much work.
Way too much work.
Too much work.
Just take Halo.
All right. Halo, just put it, let's put it in E tier and leave it there. Done. And then maybe at one point we'll put it in F tier when we have some more mitochondrial support aids and just reduce the drugs even further.
Or maybe it'll move to A tier when we finally get that research.
Fuck, Kurt. Kurt's on the roll today. All right. That leaves us with certified S tier, Anavar. Well, you know my opinion, so take it away.
Go ahead, Dean.
Okay. Definitely going to be the favorite of them all. Both from contest prep and off-season perspective. So we've got a myriad of different benefits we're going to get out of this. Whereas, you know, free fatty acid oxidation to improve fat burning, the collagen synthesis aspect that we always rave on about with Anavar, I guess central nervous system, that non-genomic calcium signaling for improved muscular strength. You know, it's going to be S tier for a number of reasons. Probably out of them all, one that we have some, obviously the studies with women where may not be completely anabolic to speak in terms of gaining a lot of muscle tissue, but we retain tissue due to its, you know, effects on neuromuscular strength. So it's definitely one that has so many applications where you know, whether it's for strength athlete, bodybuilder, physique athlete, etc. I don't know what else you want to add, Kurt.
It's got mixed activity, so it's kind of, it used to just be thought as a pure class 1. It kind of seems to do, like you said, some, you know, nerve stimulation through calcium. You know, it's not that liver toxic. It's got the oxygen on carbon 2 through by steric hindrance. It really doesn't affect the liver that much. It's get passed to the kidneys. It's been shown relatively, as far as steroids, it's been relatively safe, right? Even in the United States, before the FDA just literally outlawed it for all use, right before that, they changed the dosing guideline for children. They went for, the standard was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And then they changed it to 3 years continuous for it. And then literally a month later, they pulled it off the shelves and cited some board meeting in 1983 claiming that it was unsafe and they would never revisit it ever again. So I don't know what that was about, but it's now against the law in America, which is a shame because it was probably one of the safest ones out there, right? And to me, it's similar to Primo in that for years, like for most of our existence in this world, Primo and Anavar were looked at as girl steroids or weak, right? You look at them actually on a milligram basis, they're not. Right. And now guys are using both of those drugs. Where 10 years ago, if you told a guy you were using Primo and Anavar, be like, the heck's wrong with you?
Well, nobody wants to be a crazy blood monster anymore with high blood pressure and failing kidneys. That was the thing of the 90s. Right, let's push our bellies out and fail our kidneys for chasing a pro card. And now people actually want to stay alive and have quality of life after getting that pro card. So we got them a little bit smarter. We're not 100% smart yet, but we're getting there. I want to revisit this. Like you have this oxygen atom, right? In Anavar, it's preventing hepatic breakdown and liver stress. And then it's always been touted that it might metabolize through the kidneys. But I'd really tried to look for scientific evidence of this, but I was never able to find this. So this is something you learn in biochemistry based on the chemical structure?
Yeah.
Or is there some...
Dean, do you have a modeling of it? Or
no, but with that sort of furin setup on it with the oxygen, when they say it's metabolized at the kidneys, I think what they mean is in terms of being excreted. Unchanged, excreted unchanged at the kidneys. So rather than going through sulfation, glucuronidation, when it reaches the glomerular of the kidneys, for some reason it's just caught and pulled down into the urine for excretion.
Okay.
So it's excreted unchanged, was what my understanding from reading into it is.
That's
so
it's just too large it's too large, so it's basically just going out.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be conjugated.
It's excreted unchanged, basically. Okay. So rather than being, oxidized or sulfated or any sort of the metabolism pathways for excretion, the kidneys basically just catch it and filter it out into the urine. So when we sort of do a drug detection, you detect it unchanged, basically. Where I think it says about 60% is excreted from the top of my head
urine
into the urine. So from a bioavailability perspective, you're losing 60% out through your urine, unchanged, basically.
Wow, that's a lot.
So you often see people argue about, it gets excreted by the kidneys. I think there's that nuance in what the science is saying is that
28% unchanged through urine, 3% through feces, which is still high.
Yeah.
So there we go. And so it ends up just being, it doesn't need to undergo any sort of hepatic metabolism or CYP metabolism for excretion.
Right.
So
okay, and it doesn't have to be marked for excretion with sulfation or glucuronidation. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's literally falling out of your kidneys.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay. So, and it's weird because even lower dosages are effective. So it does seem that it potentiates all of its effects before it excretes. Is there any way to kind of retain that? No, right? Only keeping your albumin and SHBG levels high for
or don't pee.
Yeah.
Don't pee.
Drink your own urine.
Yeah. Maybe
that was not medical advice.
Maybe go to the CrossFit Games and start up a little potty service there and just filter all the fucking urine that's being produced there.
You'll have people like increasing sales of like cross-membrane filtration where they're peeing and then filtering their urine to recollect the crystals of oxandrolone that's in their urine.
It's expensive, man. You need that little machine that he has on Waterworld where he filters his own urine. Shit. All right. So, Anavar, certified S tier? Can we agree on this?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so many positives to it, very, very few negatives. I mean, the main negative, if you were to be really critical, again, like with blood work, you can see when someone's using high dose Anavar because HDL is in the gutter.
Yeah.
And quite often, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, but you'll have people who utilize SARMs and you look at the blood work and HDL is down in like the teens, or for, UK measurements at like 0.4 millimole that you're sort of looking at and you're going, okay, well, you're not taking a SARM, it's actually tainted with maybe Anavar or some oral steroids, and that's why you're seeing benefit.
Well, the Austrian can crush your HDL quite tremendously as well, especially if you run 30 milligrams per day.
A high dose.
It crushes it. Like selective androgen receptor modulators are selective at single milligram dosages. Mm-hmm. Nobody gets anabolic from that, or at least not what the kind of anabolism that we're after. And at higher dosages, they lose selectivity, just like beta blockers lose selectivity, or beta adrenergic receptor agonists lose selectivity. So, what's the fucking point? Just run Anavar. Yeah, I think Anavar is the go-to end-all be-all oral steroid of the bunch. Just like Primo and testosterone are basically the best injectable oral steroids, and that's why I always say to people, if you can only choose 3, test Primo Anavar, and you can get the job done. The rest is just fun to experiment with.
Oh, and
GH. Yeah, but we'll get to the peptides next week. Like the Trembolone, the Anadrol, Masteron, they're all great on top, but if you can't get the job done on test Primo Anavar, the girly steroids, then I don't know if you have any business taking other stuff.
Well, the only reason why I leveraged, I've pushed past, I would say, my genetic limit. So there was no amount of Primo that I could tolerate because it was destroying my estrogen, right? And I was
of course,
I was already in the grams of test, right? And I was already at a bottle of Serostim. No, I was explaining to other people why I had to leverage stronger stuff. But with that, that's also why when then people come to me that are 160 pounds and want to use Anadrol, it's not.
You don't need to.
You don't need to.
You don't need to.
And I'm not by any means a mass sponsor. I'm just past where my body wants to sit, right? Without pushing harder than.
Exactly.
That's all.
Like you get to 80% of where you are now with test Primo Anavar.
I used growth hormone. That's pretty much all I ever used. I didn't even use growth hormone until I was 47.
Until Chase got you on the high dose.
Well, Paul was the first one, and then then Chase convinced me just to use a ton of it.
Yeah, and then you mutate it again. You get a little growth spurt.
Yeah, I put on an extra 30 pounds that year.
Fuck. Yeah, I put on.
And half of that was in my feet. I think they grew almost 2 sizes.
Oh my God! Oh, it's another excuse to go shopping.
Yeah,
I know a couple of great places in the U.S. where you can go shopping.
In Vegas,
dude. I bought 8 pairs of $50 shoes in the U.S. and they all look great. It's so cheap over there. Go to Macy's. They have great shoes, nice and tidy. Okay, so we classified everything. I was stupid. I didn't keep track of the classification. So off the top of my head, Anavar's S tier. Let's see, Winstrol and
Anadrol.
Winstrol Anadrol's A tier. We didn't put anything in B tier. We didn't put anything in C tier. Our C tier was Turinabol. And again, we'll put it on the screen. So if I'm mistaken somewhere, my sincere apologies. I got sloppy this time. On D tier, we got nothing. On E tier, we got Primo Acetate and Dianabol.
And Halo.
And Halo. And then Superdrol as well, I think. And then on F tier, Proviron. And YK11 to be determined. I could be a little bit mistaken here, but again, I have my sincere apologies. I didn't keep track because I got too excited talking about drugs. Yeah,
right?
I think that's about right. So next month, we'll do the peptides. We'll go over growth hormone, insulin, IGF-1, whether it's LR3, DES, or Increlex.
Just big difference.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. It's funny that
we could put Mechano growth factor in there. Do you guys have experience with the EPO?
I only in a hospital, not on myself.
Okay, so maybe we can go over that because it's considered a growth factor. And then whatever we can consider to be anabolic or has anabolic potential, because there's peptides like LL37, KPV, right, BPC157, TB500. I wouldn't technically consider anabolic, but they're more like healing peptides or just efficiency peptides. But MOD-C, you could say, has some sort of anabolic potential because it increases ATP production, which helps with energy and thus can make you train harder. So let's make a tentative list, and then we'll start classifying those. And I think we're going to get a lot of S, A, and Bs.
Yeah. Not a lot of unsafe garbage there. Just some stuff that's not as useful as others. But
yeah, well, maybe follistatins we could put at the bottom.
Try.
But there are follistatin protocols out there that use pretty high dosages post-workout in single administration. And then you only run it a couple times. I got that from a peptide owner or an owner of stem cells in the United States. He's got a big stem cell company, so he has a follistatin 344 protocol that seems to work. But let's start with the YK level first. Let's see what happens. See what happens. Otherwise, my nose and hands is just going to grow, and then I will never be pretty anymore. So that's what we're going to do next week. While we still have, do we still have time, Kurt?
Yeah, we could. I got another 10 minutes.
Okay,
you want to go over the bile stuff?
Yeah, Dean, take it away. You got 10 minutes. Make it snappy.
Well, what we had a chat obviously before we come on. I shared some of the research. I mean, we can throw up some of the slides. I'll send them over from the education platform. That
do you have them on your computer?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can. You can present if you want.
Yeah, let's throw them up here.
And then I'll get the overlays.
So, obviously, when we sort of look at why we lose appetite when it comes to oral steroids, it really sort of baffled me why some people did get it and why some people didn't get it. And it was basically just having a look at, well, what causes appetite and what controls appetite. So let me just throw up on the screen here. So if we fly through this really quickly, everything surrounding like our appetite, we've got, giving rise to what we consider from flavor, our hedonic signals, our dopamine, why we want to chase certain different types of foods. It's all controlled by a part of your brain basically, but the main ones when we're looking in terms of like what control our appetite is neuropeptide Y, MPY, and these agouti related protein neurons. Without getting into all the fanciness of it, this is sort of why when we look at the melanocortin aspect, why sometimes when you take melanotan 2, it messes with your appetite as well, because you're inhibiting your appetite through that melanocortin receptor.
Ah, right. Yeah, so it's PT141 or maybe megadosing the trenbolone, increasing adrenocorticotropic hormone levels over time.
Correct. So, when you look at that from an appetite perspective, then, what promotes those MPY or AGRP neurons, and that's obviously ghrelin, and then what inhibits it is leptin, insulin, or this peptide that's made in your intestine, PYY336. And then obviously what decreases your appetite, melanocortin, and that's all down again due to leptin, instant feedback, and then some input from neuropeptide Y. So skipping all through, obviously dopamine and serotonin play into how you have your appetite overall. And what we sort of want to get into is, well, when you lose your appetite, well, what is driving it? Most likely some level of liver stress, and that's feeding on down into the gut. But why it happens, no one ever really spoke about. One side of it is sort of like, the toxicity of these compounds are because, that's the reason why you lose your appetite. And to me, I didn't really buy into that. What I found was, your liver is very important for appetite regulation, but it's because you make this enzyme called liver fructose 1,6-biphosphatase, FBPase. And FBPase has an effect over onto your vagal nerve, which will then cause reduction in appetite. And obviously it will stimulate leptin to be released then potentially from adipose tissue. So that's just the feedback we put up on the screen. Very fancy feedback loop. You increase FBPase and you decrease appetite as a consequence. So if you sort of look at how that carries over, FBPase will go up. Shock horror, Anavar, or Anadrol, free fatty acid oxidation goes up, and all of a sudden you affect the vagal nerve tone, which reduces the food intake by acting on those neuropeptide Y or AGRP neurons. So, in terms of what happens then, you have an elevation of liver FBPase, increase in fatty acid oxidation. You produce a lot of this BHB ketone, which, can then obviously reduce appetite, and you stimulate cholecystokinin and leptin. So if you know all that then, and this big, interrelationship between FBPase, leptin, and food intake, well then, how can you reduce that appetite reduction from oral steroids? Very simply, just lower gluconeogenesis, where you lower that FBPase production, and how you affect that is with bile acids. So bile acids are going to inhibit that hepatic gluconeogenesis, and also you want to make sure that you're helping break down fatty acids by having sufficient lipase. So like the cliff notes here basically are increase your bile acid intake, where it's Tudka, Udka, take synthetic ox bile. So again, you're helping with lowering that FPPA's production, but you're also then helping with the fat emulsification. Take lipase as a supplement with high fat meals. Again, we know high fat meals are going to slow digestion, which affect your appetite. So the lipase supplement is breaking down the fats, helping with the dietary absorption of those fatty acids. The Tudka is coming in with the emulsification, with the ox bile. And then choline inositol, very important for transporting fatty acids across the liver into the small intestine. Between those three supplements, ox bile, Tudka, choline inositol, most guys who have ran that protocol never have appetite issues with orals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm running. That's why I'm always hungry. It sucks though. It sucks because we're talking about 250 milligrams Tudka multiple times per day, 500 milligrams ox bile, and then 500 milligrams combination choline and inositol. So basically, you're taking that every meal, right? And then magnesium for intestinal motility because you hold a little bit of it helps with lubrication, right? To keep some fluid, especially in combination with Tudka or Utka. And then if you combine that with a good amount of fiber from vegetables, then you basically have this just thing that moves through very, very nicely and effectively, never messing with your appetite. So I basically run something similar the entire year through. And even when I take a GLP-1, a GAP and glucagon in form of erythritol, I can still eat, man. If I take Anadrol, I can still eat to the point my digestion is actually worse because I could just keep hammering food. Yeah. I mean, you saw how I ate at the buffet's dinner, right?
Yeah.
And that was on erythritol. Like Chase is suffering and I'm just eating like it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I was sitting next to him.
Yeah, he was suffering. Yeah.
He was trying to push past that.
Yeah, I could just eat. I don't have any appetite, but I could just eat through it. It's disgusting. Yeah, so I need to get that under control. But yeah, it's a very good combination. It's a very good combination to minimize liver stress and keep your appetite going. So Dean, thank you for empowering all the oral steroid only cycle guys.
Well, that's it. I mean, I was going to say, if you want the appetite suppression, then do nothing of what we just spoke about there.
Yeah,
but
then your liver enzymes and detoxification is impaired also, right? So you basically have to put this in place just for intestinal health and overall detoxification, because without the ox bile, Tudka, and choline and inositol, the toxins will build up.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, even we've spoken about it several times, and obviously in the discussions around the orals and liver health, when we have super physiological levels of androgens, I showed it to Kurt and I showed it to you years ago. You block stem cell infiltration to your liver, so and that's something that is not spoken about. That your liver, people are like, oh well, my liver can heal. Well, it can't really if you've
not
got,
on a cycle. You can.
If you've got and if you do a rebound cycle after a contest prep cycle, you ain't going into no health phase. So. And that's where the fatty liver slowly builds and builds and builds in the background. And why it's important, T or T phases to allow that internal mechanics of the liver stem cell infiltration to occur.
Yeah, or come completely off. But you still have to train during the time, because otherwise you get rhabdomyolysis and your kidneys get flooded. I think that's the problem with some of the 90s bodybuilders. They would come off for 3 months, 6 months after the Mr. Olympia. And then they would come off from steroids completely, not even do a PCT, but also not train for 3 months. And then your muscles, your muscle just breaks down. All this protein and metabolic waste products is just going through your kidneys. I know, would these guys check their BUN and uric acid levels and whatever? Probably not,
No.
So if you want to keep your stem cells going, that's 100, 125 milligrams a test, maybe 150 or if you're a big guy, or HCG monotherapy if your testicles are still functional. And then you do that for a couple of weeks to months to kind of detoxify your liver. You go to, the gym that Dean just opened to get yourself a fibro scan at the end, right? Get those levels nice and low. And then when the fibro scan says you have the green light, which mine showed I have a green light, then you can throw in the Anadrol and get saucy again.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, beyond liver ultrasound obviously is sort of above FibroScan, but FibroScan is so FibroScan takes 5 minutes max, 5-10 minutes, and it doesn't really require a skilled sonographer to give you an in-depth picture. It's literally a little probe into your side, 4 little pulse waves, and you get a good accurate representation of the stiffness and the fat of your liver. If the FibroScan shows stiffness and fat, then you go for the ultrasound to see the extent of the damage. But for guys here, FibroScan, if you've not had one done, it's, so non-invasive, and the numbers that it gives you.
It's very non-invasive, and it's fun because you can feel that little hammer tap on your body. You're like, what the hell's going on? You feel it, and then you do that a couple times to get like 10 good readings, and then they take the average. It's a fun examination. Doesn't cost much, and then if you get low numbers, I can't remember off the top of my head, but like if you get a 2.6 on the, what was it called? I forgot.
You've got a steatosis score, an S score, and a fibros score, which is the F score. My S score went up from 150 to 170 over a year, which is still like S0. Still no fat in my liver, basically like a baby's liver. But I remember at the follow-up test this year, the consultant was like, "Oh, well, you're still S0, still perfect." I'm like, no, it's not. It's gone up 20 points. It's gone the wrong way. He's like, well, what do you expect it to be, like perfect all the time? I'm like, well, yeah, I want it to stay at 150. I don't want it going up. And obviously that was, bits of cholesterol and stuff from the celiac, but it's, it's a simple test that do at least once a year. If you're taking orals and that, just fatty liver disease is not something you want to all of a sudden, pick up on your blood work and you've already got some level of damage and then have to do a water fast and mimicking diet or whatever to reverse it.
I can't recommend it. And even then in blood work, it's difficult to determine because for us, lipids and triglycerides will be in range, and the liver enzymes are always a bit elevated from training, so you're probably overlooking it completely. And then ferritin will come up and down depending on, where you are in your cycle and how much metabolism you have with your iron and stuff. It's hard to pinpoint unless you do some imaging. I found out after an ultrasound with 3 years in between. So it's like, hey, something is off. Now I got to fix it. You just got to diet hard. Diet very hard. Maybe do some fasts, and then you get it under control. I know Kurt is pressed for time, so let's wrap it up here. This was great, as always. Next month we'll do the peptides. Guys, if you have any suggestions on peptides to classify, let us know down below. Kurt, you started a website. You have a forum. Where can people find you?
Instagram, Kurt.Havens, YouTube, Kurt.Havens. My forum is forum at atomiclifecoaching.com. Atomiclifecoaching.com is my website as well for coaching, consulting, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. When are you going to increase the rates again so people can jump the gun before you do?
I would say very soon. I just picked up 2 new clients today.
Oh, shit. Yeah, it never ends. I know. Dean, sorry. Dean, where can people find you?
Instagram, DNSTM. Don't YouTube, maybe someday, Steve. But for now,
you can do a guest appearance.
I'm happy being here for the time being. We've got
a guest appearance here on the Anabolic Roundtable. Just make sure it's exclusive. Don't hop over on our podcast. I need you right here.
Exactly. And obviously then we've got supplementneeds.co.uk, the supplement website, and the education platform that you'll see some of the slides from here today, SN Education. And other than that, you can reach out through my email on my profile if anyone wants to consult with me. But like Kurt, it's starting to spiral a bit where I'm about 4 to 5 weeks booked in advance. So I apologize.
Sorry. Sorry for getting you guys on the biggest steroid platform on the YouTubes. Dude, man, I've been doing calls nonstop since I came back from the US because I didn't want to do it while I was in the US. So I booked them all back, and I'm still backlogged. It's insane, man.
It's worse problems to have.
Yeah, I know there's worse problems to have.
Forever grateful for everyone who's reaching out. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. Yeah, so and cool people too. people we cannot talk about, but very cool people in our industry that
definitely.
are watching and doing calls. So, guys, you know where to find me. I don't need to promote it. It's all linked down below as the social media links for Kurt and Dean. Dean, plug your discount code for SLUPP332 so you can get some more sales going.
We've obviously got Biolabs for anyone in the EU, biolabs.co.uk, Dr. Dean. And the same with supplement needs, Dr. Dean will save you 10% off our website.
There you go. Modern Aminos and Amino Asylum code Vigorous. And more sources on my Control F source list on my website. Sources of all the stuff that we just discussed. And then some. And with that, the Anabolic Roundtable is out. We'll see you at the end of November.
Yep.
That's such a long time. But if you do it too much, then people get spoiled. So we'll see you at the end of November.
Thank you.
Then we'll get that good episode in before Christmas. Okay, guys, this was an absolute pleasure. And I'll see you guys next month. Okay?
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Peace out.